won that appeal. The court ruled man dies but once, that he was dead when he was shot in the heart, so he couldn't have been killed a second time. So then they went after him for attempted murder. And the question was, can you kill a corpse? Can you attempt to kill a corpse if you don't know necessarily that he's dead? And so we won that case as well, and that became a famous case.
I assume that only works if you're being coerced into it, right? Because, like, if a bunch of people are shooting someone and say, like, the first shot instantly kills the person, the other people don't know that. They're still shooting the person. Like, they'd still be culpable, right? Like, you can't just say you can't kill a corpse.
Well, what are you saying?
Like, okay, say there's
like
like
the guy should
guys.
call 911. No, let's call 911. You're gonna die.
Say there's like 4 guys and they all want to shoot John. Okay, and so when they all start to open fire on John, but the first person who shoots John instantly kills him somehow. Okay.
Yes.
But the other 3 guys, they don't know that. They're still gonna shoot. They're still shooting and firing into John, who's already dead. They're still gonna be, charged and I assume convicted of murder.
This is lawyer stuff, man. This is all technicalities and shit.
Well, no, but I'm assuming that this argument of you can't kill a corpse, it only applies because it's like someone killed someone, that person knew that they were dead. Like, you have to have foreknowledge that the person is dead, and then they shoot them.
Yeah, you have to be an expert, a medical expert. Did you take his pulse? Do you know that he was dead?
Hello, V.
In this day and age, you can probably live
Jefferson?
from a gunshot wound to the heart.
Listen, I need your help again.
You're
I don't know
down.
about
Matters.
that, Iron Man.
Private.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're
Sure.
right.
Okay.
Iron Man lived. Okay.
What's it about?
That's right.
Not on the hollow. Come by.
Used
I'll lay it
criminal law
out.
book. So,
Explain everything.
and that was a fascinating client, a fascinating case. Nobody's ever heard of him. I didn't get paid.
He probably
Got your
bribed
back,
the
Jefferson.
judge.
Not to worry.
Great.
How dare
We'll see you
you?
here then.
I got paid a
Remember
couple
where?
$100 to do it.
Of course.
But that was
Be there in no time.
the kind of cases I love to take. Because I like to bring my courtroom into the classroom, and I'd like to bring the classroom into the courtroom. And that was, I think, the key to my.
When are you going to get your attorney license? When are you going to become an attorney? Sid, you're
Never.
smart.
I have
You're
no
smarter
desire
than
to do
these
that
guys.
whatsoever.
Why?
Zero desire. Zero.
Why?
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but these attorneys, I bet they get a lot of tang. You could be a player.
And look at Alan there. He looks like he's just rolling in it, right?
Yeah, he looks like he just stepped off Epstein's island. he's a player, man. Too much work. Sitch is like too much work. It's got to be less work than doing YouTube videos.
That's
a lot of work.
My success, able to bring the classroom to court with me and bringing the courtroom back to class with me.
It's interesting. One of the seminal, or one of the case laws that we study in criminal law relates to the similar idea of sexual assault on someone who actually is deceased. Is it sexual assault, or was it, desecrating a corpse? It's one of the fundamental criminal law cases that we study in Canada in law school. Right. Okay, so
Go Canada. Jeez.
teaching the hard-hitting knowledge right there.
Necrophilia 101 class.
And you rape a dead body.
Is in session.
we're gonna get into it quickly, but O.J. Simpson, you successfully defended someone who
He took a deep breath there, like, okay, here comes the hard stuff now. Did you catch that?
Oh, Frei'd?
Dershowitz.
That's it.
Okay, so
The body language here is
we're gonna
amazing.
get into
Here.
it quickly, but O.J. Simpson,
Conflicting.
you successfully
Look at that.
defended.
Yeah.
See that? See that pensive,
I did.
deep breath? And he puts out a defensive. His first comment is defensive as well. Well, it wasn't just me alone. We were part of a team.
You gotta diffuse responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true in his case. He was right.
I was
Okay,
following
I really
orders,
need to
my
say
commanding
this.
officer. You don't understand how these things work.
Someone
Part of a
who-
team. Part of a team.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's not to attribute more responsibility to you or disperse it, but the dream.
Responsibility. I take credit. Don't talk about it in a negative way. I'm very proud of my role in the O.J. Simpson case. Yeah.
So a lot of
Smooth. Oh my
Very
God. Smooth move. What do you mean? I'm proud of it, motherfucker. Step off.
I'm proud that I helped get a double homicide murder.
wash my hands. People, and this is going to work us into another notorious client, but a lot of people think you successfully defended a double murderer by using technicalities and invoking racial questions,
okay?
to undermine and get a guilt to undermine.
He looks. Dershowitz just looked. The look on his face is like, "What am I doing? I thought this was YouTube. I thought I was safe here." When the first time I wasn't watching, I listened to this, but now I'm getting a totally different take here, because the face gives it all away, don't you think?
Yeah, this is the first time I watched it too, because I only listened to it before. So
I
don't
mean,
know, I'm
he's
always
definitely
super
the
hesitant
mood.
to-
The mood shifted quickly with that breath.
It did.
The
it did,
deep
but-
breath. The mood completely turned here.
But I'm always super hesitant to read into body language.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people misinterpret a lot of body cues.
Do you know that this is like the best job ever? That they pay people, body language experts, to go in and read the jury, and give the defense attorneys and prosecutors feedback on how the how the verdict is gonna go. Do you know that? That's
Yeah,
the
I do
best
know.
job in the world.
Why? Because you can just make anything up when you read.
Well, no, if you went in and I mean that's something that it just seems fun. It seems fun to sit in a courtroom and try to like, this is what we do on our show pretty regularly, is read body language and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's fun. I like it. I don't know if the results would be correct, but that's the thing, because if that was your job, they'd be paying you to get them correct results. So you would live or die based on whether or not you delivered them good information. If the information you delivered was good, then obviously, I mean, these guys also do a bunch of body language courses and stuff like that for police officers and for defense attorneys, like legal people, so that they can do that themselves, obviously. You don't put a lot of faith in the body language stuff?
I don't put a lot of faith in the body language.
Why?
I mean, sometimes it's really apparent. You see two people having a conversation, and you can see the body language. It's like, oh, it's like it's just plastered everywhere, but you can see what's going on. But I don't know. I feel like when
Look
you
at
have
this
these
look.
sorts of
Look at this look Dershowitz has here. Look, he's having the time of his life right now. He looks like he just walked into a cocktail party. No, he doesn't. He looks like he just stepped on a landmine and he's trying to figure out how to get off it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I wasn't really paying attention to his facial expressions, before this stuff.
He's like, God damn it, I heard that click. You know that
I know
click
some
when you
people
step
just have
on
that
it?
kind of resting bitch face.
Really? Viva's trying to pull it together here. Oh my God.
Maybe.
He's like, I'm with my hero. I have to ask him tough questions.
Well, it's more fun to say that we can read into the body language, so we can just go with it. We can
It's
just go
more
that route.
fun. It's what this is, millions of years of evolution to signal
true.
across the savannah to us.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
A
fair.
tiger is eating my leg. That's what that face says. That face says,
No, that face is the tiger just appeared in the savannah over the tall
Right.
grass.
oh yeah.
It's not quite eating my leg yet.
Let's see where this goes.
A prosecution the person off. On the one hand, explain how you sort of I wouldn't say moralize that, but justify that.
The eyes on the chat too. Like you can tell both these guys. It's very noticeable when they look down at the chat.
Yes.
Which is so weird.
What you got in
It's
stock?
so weird. You know that
Nice
psychological
variety?
experiment
Anything
where
worth looking at?
they put
I have
people in a room and ask them
things.
to talk, and they give them a monitor that feeds back the people listening how interested they are in what they're saying.
It's totally distracting. Yeah, it totally distracts them. So they're so
It's the
focused
same.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Right.
Dershowitz is like, these people hate me. I'm bombing. I came on here to be loved.
Yourself into the world, and how you feel about it in hindsight.
Well, I just go back to the first book of the Bible, Abraham arguing with God when God comes down and says, I'm going to punish the sinners of Sodom. And Abraham looks at God and he says one of the most powerful things anybody has ever said to a God. "Chalila lacha hashofet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat." How dare you, the judge of all the world, will not yourself do justice? What if there are 50 innocent people among the people you would sweep away? Would you sweep away the innocent along with the guilty? And Abraham wins the argument, and that's always been.
See, that's the move, Adam. Okay, someone questions you and your morality. You're like, I got a Bible quote in my back pocket that I can speak in the original Hebrew to throw at you.
It's good. It's good. He's thought this through. He's like, I get asked this question every year at the holidays, motherfucker.
He pulls out the Torah. Like, starts
Yeah, I'm
reading from
surprised
it.
he doesn't pull the Bible up. I have the Bible right here.
It wasn't. Now, my biblical knowledge is a little rusty. Okay.
I gotta fight you.
But in the story
you
of
buck.
Sodom and Gomorrah,
flesh.
doesn't it end with him not being able to find any innocent people
No
in the
la-
city
And I
and leaving with his family when God destroys it? Like, I
Ooh,
don't.
they're the only innocent people, and he lets them go. He lets them go.
this rifle.
I guess
Red
he didn't.
was-
is
I guess
used.
he didn't win the
Little
argument after
souvenir.
all, did he?
Just
Well, I mean, I
curious.
guess he spared himself.
Well, well.
I guess.
But we ain't hit.
This is crazy.
In the for me, when I accepted
don't
the O.J.
know.
Simpson case, he was facing the death
Told you
penalty.
already.
I didn't
I'm
know
laying
whether
out
he was
all
guilty
I
or
got.
innocent. He seemed guilty.
Of you?
Everybody thought he was
Follow
guilty.
me.
But then again, everybody who saw
I guess we might want to give a little background on the O.J. Simpson case. A big part
we
of why,
have to? Are we that old that we have to give background on O.J. Simpson?
maybe.
You ready?
I feel like we do.
Not too scared, are you,
No,
I
buttercup?
lived through O.J. Simpson. I'm sure you didn't live through
I look
O.J.
forward
I was
to it.
5 years old. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
Like that.
exactly.
You like getting your
So
ass beat, huh?
the main reason why most people thought O.J. Simpson was guilty was because when they went to arrest him, he got into his Bronco and drove down the Santa Monica freeway at like 20 miles an hour with 50 police cars chasing after him, which is not necessarily what you do, you know, if you're an innocent guy.
To the airport, right?
Like I thought.
Yes, I believe he was headed towards the airport, but he never got there. He like turned himself in. He was probably on the phone with Dershowitz right there. No, turn yourself in. You're making yourself look guilty as hell. No, obviously Dershowitz said he didn't come in until later, but you know he was on the phone with an attorney. He definitely was on the phone with an attorney.
Yeah.
It's like, I
Wasn't
think I
he
could-
not driving? Didn't he have? Wasn't a friend driving or something?
Oh, I don't remember that part. No, I think he was driving. Yeah,
I don't
white
remember.
Bronco.
A
Anyway.
white Bronco.
Anyway, so this was
gotta fight.
captivating. This was the
And I-
viral moment
So-
of our generation.
Mm-hmm.
This rifle.
Well, the Lockerbie case recently thought
we
the
ain't-
guy who was convicted was guilty, and now, years later,
I don't-
doubts have arisen. Just
Ah,
the other
toss
day,
in
a
the
man
sniper.
spent 38 years in
I mean, that
prison
is-
and was
Of
freed
you?
when it turned out the woman who was an
Follow.
eyewitness admitted she made up the whole story and lied against him. I've had many cases like that. So he was
You don't look. It could turn out that 20 years later, the Nicole Brown pops up
You
alive,
ready?
and she turns out
Not-
that she made up the fact that she was murdered. You know?
I look forward to
Or
it.
the
That could
killer.
happen, right?
The
Like
killer
that.
could come forward.
You
The
like
killer
getting
could come
your
forward and
ass
say,
beat,
"I
huh?
did it." Yeah,
That's right. That's right. The random killer.
yeah. I would do a
facing the death.
like forensic audit on his bank accounts. Just me, you
Take
know.
the case, but I'll let you in on a little secret. We didn't win the O.J. Simpson case. We didn't win it. The prosecution lost it. They blew it in every possible way. I was in the court.
See? The diffusion of responsibility.
Totally.
here is
Yes. Their
so
fault.
Blatantly. You know, it's so interesting how blatant it is.
It's their fault. We did everything we could to lose that case, and if they weren't fucking incompetent, O.J.
Well, I'll
Simpson
rip
would be
that tongue out.
behind bars today.
Come on.
If
Hand
only
over
the
the rifle.
prosecution was better at defeating me and my
Rotten
arguments,
meat.
then
Get
they would have
him!
won. It's
Here we go!
Yeah, when you argue with God, what are you gonna get? You're gonna lose.
Room. Asked him to try on the glove. They could have asked him to try on the glove outside the presence of the jury to see if it fit. They could have asked him to try it on without wearing latex gloves, but they were so arrogant that they didn't. And it didn't fit, whether it shrank, whatever it was.
Well,
he walked up to the jury,
Alan.
or whether he manipulated his fingers. That's not my fault. That's the prosecution's fault. He walked up to the jury and he said, "It's too small." At that point, he had already testified in front of the grand jury. Let me tell you one other thing. So
I wonder what Fry was gonna say.
I know, Jesus
I'm
Fry.
super curious because he laughed
let
as
it
if what
go.
he said was ridiculous.
He let it go. He totally let it go. Fry, get in there.
They
Yeah.
found a sock.
What's up?
Well, no, I'm curious. I should have researched to see if that claim is true. If they could have just asked him to try the glove on in private.
Reach out to us, Viva. We want to have you on. We'll even take the law out of your name. We promise. We want to know what
the
you were.
law in his name, okay?
We want to know what you were gonna say. We want to know what you were gonna ask there. I know. I know you remember. I know you remember. Leave us a comment. Let us know.
Well, he had an interesting follow-up conversation with Eric Barnes where they discussed this.
He did. Yeah, that was fascinating too.
Yeah.
His stuff with Barnes, I find totally fascinating. You don't.
Yeah, it's
you
very
don't like Barnes as much, but.
Well, I really like listening to him and Barnes because I think Barnes is totally like stuck in the conspiracy theory way of thinking.
He
But
can't
it's
be.
like-
He makes fun of those people all the time. I
Well, no,
don't
but
know.
but he has his own conspiracy theories. Okay, the whole Federalist Society, everyone's out to get Trump stuff.
That's true. That's not a conspiracy theory.
But
I know. I know.
but why-
I'm talking smack. I know nothing
I know,
about the
you have no-
Federalist Society.
But the thing that is interesting to me about Barnes is that it's to me someone who has like they're kind of stuck in the conspiracy theory web, but they're still like they're not like completely insane. They're not like Sidney Powell or Linwood or any of these people. Like
Right.
he still works within the realms of like the law. He's still incredibly smart and knowledgeable about the legal system. So he still
Yes.
gives you all these like really interesting legal opinions and takes and information. And
Yeah.
I know. To me, it's always interesting to see like the Ducat, like when people are kind of like in both worlds at the same time. It's like when you have the hyper religious person who's a scientist or a doctor or something or a neurosurgeon.
yeah.
Like, that's very interesting.
Fascinating. Yeah, no, Barnes knows his shit. I don't, I've never, aside from that Federal Society stuff, but there are real conspiracies in the world. I feel like Barnes is pointing out stuff that, I mean, the idea that judges judge based on their political philosophy does not seem odd to me. And
No. But no, of course not. Well, judges obviously. But when I say conspiracy stuff, like this idea that he keeps promoting with Trump, with Trump's lawsuits in terms of the election fraud stuff, in that, the only reason that all these judges that are Trump-appointed judges don't side with him is because there's like this Federalist Society anti-populist conspiracy that's like, fermenting in politics and in the legal system. And they're all just so anti-right-wing, anti-populist, even though they're all appointed by Trump himself, To me, that's very conspiratorial.
Yeah.
When you're saying the guy that all these people that Trump himself is appointing all don't agree with him, it must be because there's a conspiracy. That's, to me, kind of far out there.
yeah, that is a little odd.
The sock, the best piece of evidence imaginable. It had on it the blood of O.J. Simpson and the victims, and we were able to prove that the sock was found by the police without any blood on it. They took it home. They laid it out flat. Tell you the name of the officer, Officer Van Adder. He took blood that he had in his possession from victim and from O.J., poured it on the sock. How did we prove it? In two ways. Number one, the blood on the sock had a chemical in it called EDTA, not found in the human body, but put in test tubes to prevent coagulation. Number two, the blood splatter evidence showed that the sock was laying flat when the blood was poured on it and wasn't being worn. If it had been worn, you wouldn't have seen mirror images on all four sides. So the police tried to frame somebody they believed was guilty, and we caught him, and the jury acquitted. Very proud of it. I do it again. That's my job.
That dude just cost the whole case. What an idiot.
I know.
What an idiot. No, we need more evidence here. Give me that sock.
See, but that's like the profound moral question that. This is why, I would never be a defense attorney. You never, a criminal defense attorney. You wouldn't
Yeah.
be a criminal defense attorney. It's like, okay, you think your client is guilty, but you're pretty sure that the cops also fabricated evidence.
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, you're fucked. You're totally fucked. You're like, everyone here sucks.
I know.
No wonder Dershowitz thinks everybody fucked up but him. It's like, everyone did fuck up.
Oh yeah, no, like the did you see what was it? There was like not recently, like some years ago, there was a HBO, I think it was, special that was all about the OJ trial. It was really interesting about how
No,
the
I never
prosecution
saw
did
it.
like super fuck up on a lot of levels.
Yeah. No, it doesn't surprise me though.
Job. 10 guilty go free than 1 innocent be wrongly confined. What upsets me is just recently I tried to save the life of a man on death row. I appealed to the president. I had time with him on the phone. I tried to persuade him to commute the sentence to life imprisonment. The man was not guilty of a capital crime. I couldn't persuade the president. I was not involved as his lawyer. I was just doing it as a public servant for service, but they executed him. That's what makes me lose sleep.
Typing.
You know who he's
Wait.
talking about?
Yes, I do.
I was
Yeah.
trying to. I couldn't remember the guy's name because we talked about him last week.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. The conservatives were going nuts over that guy and the situation. I mean, it was gang initiation. There's no way Trump could have pardoned that guy. Dershowitz should have known it. Dershowitz was only trying to up his street cred by.
What was that guy's name? It was like Bernard, right? Bernard Brooks or something.
I can't remember. Yeah, Bernard Brooks. Try that.
Was-
Just type
Bernard-
execution Alan Dershowitz. You'll find it. He rallied
Can't
for
find
him
it.
a few days. Yeah.
Maybe someone in the chat knows. But
I
you know,
listened
there
to
was like
Dershowitz podcast if he's got interesting stuff on.
we talked about this guy last week. This was the guy who he lit the car. They were 3 hitchhikers.
Mm-hmm.
They're posing as hitchhikers. They were picked up by 2 youth pastors, and then they robbed and then killed them.
I really wish that I really wish it's so many things can be looked at so many different ways, and I don't know if everyone makes it sound like they gave him a ride out of the goodness of their heart, but I wonder if they like showed him the gun and said, "No, you're going to give us a ride," and they did that.
Maybe that's true. I don't know.
Because it
Bring-
doesn't seem like, oh yeah, they stopped at a payphone to make a phone call, and that's when the people approached them. The thing is, and it's exactly the same as the other case, because the guy who was doing the leader of the gang, who's had these other 2 kids on the ride along for the gang initiation, shot the 2 people in the head in the trunk, and then made the kids light the car on fire. And many experts have come in and said, okay, they were already dead. Same thing Dershowitz is arguing. Like, you can't kill a man twice, that kind of thing. But the woman had smoke inhalation in her lungs, so they postulated that she was alive, but a lot of experts have come forward and said, no, that's totally normal. If you get a shot in the head, you're still brain dead, but, you can have involuntary responses.
But I don't know. To me, this is so different. I mean, you're right. He's probably looking at this like he did his first case he mentioned, where, there's people who, one guy shoots another guy, and he's like, okay, you have to shoot the body so that you're culpable. But to me, it's completely different, because that's like, okay, some guy's gonna kill you. You're in a situation you didn't intend to be in, and this guy's gonna kill you. That's what he says.
But
Protect
he did intend to be, though. There was a gang initiation.
No.
I
I'm
mean,
talking about Alan Dershowitz's first example.
Oh, yeah.
With
It's
people in the
complete,
basement
it is
or
completely
something.
different. Yeah,
Right.
it is.
Yeah. So that to me is completely different, because there's like this weird situation where the person didn't intend to be involved in murder, but with the
Yeah.
kids, as you're
Meet
saying,
me at
it's
8
gang
o'clock. We're
initiation.
gonna go kill some people. Like,
Right. Like, well, I don't know. I'm assuming they knew that they're going to be involved in a murder or a carjacking or something. Like, it's not like they just wandered into the situation.
Alan's argument was he should have got off because the defense attorney wasn't competent. He should have put a person on the stand that knew the woman was already dead, that was involuntary response. But the real reason he was doing it was because the guy had served 40 years in prison. He was a model citizen, and he talked dozens of kids out of joining a gang because of his experience. Yeah, exactly. So why wouldn't you want that guy in jail for the rest of his life, talking kids out of doing this fucking dumb, fucked up thing? Like, seriously, like, you put him to death and he immediately stops being like the arbiter of good. He can't do any more good in the world. So it seemed like just pragmatically, commute a sentence. But Trump could never do it.
Just here to
Trump
reset
isn't the
But
guy
that's
that
what's
could do it.
interesting, is because I saw a lot of people making
Guess
arguments.
I'll have
about
to
this,
do it
and you're the first
myself
person
then.
to ever
Whoa,
mention
easy.
this, and that to me that's
Shout out to
really-
Archie.
You're not going to get this from the conservatives.
Well, I am.
The conservatives
I'm
are,
talking
he
about even
burned a
from-
woman alive! Hang him
talking about-
high! Cut his
I'm
hands
talking about
off!
from the
Why?
people on the left.
Why
who were
decommiss
defending
yourself?
This guy, saying that
Because
he shouldn't
I'm
be
a
executed.
damn
No one
car
mentioned
in a
it.
Well,
world
you're
of
not gonna,
humans.
you're not going to
Which
get that
to
from
me
the
is
woke
sin,
either. The woke are
no
like, he should have
prospects
never
for
been
the
in jail.
future,
He was totally
intimidated
innocent.
on the
What you
streets
talk-
by punks
He's
like
a,
you.
yes, he's a poor underprivileged.
He's a model.
There are other
citizen.
ways
Yeah,
out
exactly. He
besides
was forced to
suicide.
do. He was forced to
What,
join a gang.
therapy?
These white people had been oppressing
Colossal
him
waste of
forever.
time.
It's
Shrinks
sad
hate
because
vehicles.
what
We
you
don't
said is
have
to me the
mothers.
most relevant information.
Could
Like,
go
well,
back
okay,
in the
this guy's
fold,
actually
rejoin the
providing
network.
a
A
public
service.
One big
right, while
happy
he's
family.
alive. So why are you gonna kill him?
Yeah,
Delaney
totally.
detests
No.
me.
It's pointless. You,
Think of all the-
society doesn't gain anything from him dying.
Think of all the young black men
Listen,
that went on to
suicide
you
ain't
know,
no coming back.
have good lives.
It's always worth
started
looking for a
families,
better way.
Right.
got
Patronize
jobs,
me because I'm a
like
car.
stayed away from the gangs
not
because
like
of
you.
his fuck up. Yeah,
Hey,
totally.
A body's
Yeah,
just
no,
a
he was
body.
doing good in the world. That's the only
You
reason. That's why
exist.
Dershowitz
You
was
think the world gets you
wanting
down.
to commute him, but yeah,
Don't see
nobody
how
talks
we're any
about these
different.
things because
Trump-
they
Trump
destroy
should've-
their narrative.
So,
Trump should have commuted
you'd
the
offer
sentence
this advice to a
because
human in my place?
the
Gotta
MAGA
try to
crowd
come to
would've
terms with this
instantly
thing called
forgiven
life,
or
Del.
forgot about it like the
One
next
wheel
day,
revolution
and
at
it
a
would have
time.
broken like the
Fine,
woke
I'll go
narrative that
back.
Trump is some sort of like rampant racist.
That's true. That's true. It could have been a good.
I mean, they
thing.
would still say
Yeah.
he's racist, but it would just be one more.
Control
like,
of the
oh, well, he
vehicle
commuted this
restored.
guy's sentence.
And I
They say,
thank
oh,
you.
he only did it because you know.
You ought to show
Just
this
don't
one
say
some
he
love.
surely wasn't.
Let's
Just
let's be
saying.
honest here, though.
Apologies. I
So
simply don't
Trump is in
understand.
the still
I
in
fear
the
I've no
election
time to
fight.
ask. Other
Alan
more urgent
Dershowitz is
tasks
on the
require
phone.
my
You know
attention.
how the
You're an
conversation.
absent
I'll pardon
father,
him,
that's what I
Dershowitz,
mean.
but you got to put your name on one of these cases in Michigan. One of these
Sheriff
election
Fee has been
cases.
You're right.
I
You're
need
right.
you.
You're right. That's
You've been in
interesting,
front of
'cause
the
then you'd
Supreme
say-
Court. Yeah, totally.
Say
And
now, if that
Dershowitz
actually
drew the
happened,
line.
now there's the interesting moral dilemma. Okay, what if Trump says, "I will commute his sentence if you join one of these lawsuits"?
Dershowitz didn't do it. We know he
And
didn't do
Dershowitz
it.
said, "Well, this is all hypothetical because we don't know if it happened." But
This is not hype. I have a crystal ball. Do not
if it
undercut my
did
powers, Sitch.
that would be how could Dershowitz turn that down? He's making an innocent man, or not? What he thinks is innocent man.
No,
you know,
Sitch.
Be safe.
How did he turn that down? That's the
Yeah.
question. How did he do it? No,
Interesting.
obviously we're joking. I don't want to get in trouble. I know these guys probably all have defamation attorneys on speed dial. This is all postulation. No,
I
no
wonder-
false statement of fact here.
I bet you if you asked him and you said, if Trump did do this, if Trump offered you this, would you do it? I bet you would say no.
Yeah, yeah. Of course. He doesn't want to sign off on any of that stuff. He on the few shows that I've watched, he's kind of tried to nudge Trump into really getting some big accomplishments.
I don't
done
need
in
this
his
shit.
lame duck presidency, and Trump has done none of that stuff. Like Trump, I think Trump still believes that he can win. Which is so weird.
I think the $2,000 check thing was a signal that now he knows that he's not going to win, but he wants to shit on Mitch McConnell for not helping.
Yeah, Mitch is like, Mitch is
'Cause
a survivor. Mitch is
That
going
I know, but that creates like the perfect storm of terribleness for the Republicans in the Senate. Because it's like, okay, the president has now said he's in favor of $2,000 check. Now, the president also said he wants to remove all the foreign aid, but no one's going to care about focus on that. They're only going to focus on the $2,000 check. So Nancy Pelosi and Democrats say, of course, we're 100% behind that. They're claiming that Monday they're going to offer a clean bill that's just that check. So what are the Republicans going to do? They have to, like, they're totally forced.
Yeah. Well, good.
And Trump had, and I'm pretty sure Trump knew that this was the situation. To me, this really seemed like he was trying to get back at them for not supporting his election.
I think the $2,000 check is his first salvo into the 2024 election. I don't see, like, his favorite thing to do as president is campaign for president. This is the opportunity, Sitch, for him to run a 4-year campaign
That's
for
true.
president.
That's true.
I can't imagine him not doing it. He just loves being in front of the crowds, and I can't imagine the crowds not showing up. He's going to
No, I
be
think-
campaigning in February.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think bearing aside any like crazy health issues, like arising for years, I think you will definitely run again in 2024. And this would be a good, and this is a good note for him to go out on, saying, look, I care about the people, I fought for you, and it would be a good
One of
platform
my
to
missing
run at. Say,
vehicles
look,
might
you know,
very well be near
when
where
everyone
you
was
are now.
suffering, I cut through all the political
Thanks.
pork and
Try to
noise,
find
and I
it.
said, give the people a check.
Yeah, and I got Nancy Pelosi to do it. Nancy Pelosi bent the knee for me. He's gonna. That's what it's
Sure.
gonna be. Look
Sure.
at Dershowitz. Dershowitz is 82 and he's still kicking. Of course, Trump can run. Trump is running on. I don't. He's probably doing blood transfusion from like 14-year-olds.
14-year-old Malaysian kids that get
Do you know
flown to
that?
America.
Do you know that works? That there's some scholarship on that.
I know it works
What
with
is-
mice. I don't know if they've never done it with people. I don't think they've done it with mice.
They took a mouse and they connected the vascular systems of a young
So
mouse.
let's get
and
you
an
back to
old
safety.
mouse. And the
Garage.
old mouse got younger. That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
Well,
Look.
yeah, afraid so.
Vampires are real. Okay, look.
I
There's a lot
guess.
of knowledge. There's a lot of
Take
weird
me
knowledge
there.
nested in
Just
our.
get me out of
As
here.
John Peters would say, there's a lot of knowledge
me know
nested
when
in
I'm
our
safe.
old stories and symbols that we forgot. Maybe that science. will
You're
help.
welcome in.
We learn.
I wonder.
do
I
take
wonder
it
if I could
slow.
go Siamese
And try
twin for a
not to
couple
hit
years,
anything.
just to
Does anyone in
get.
the chat want to volunteer to be Adam's
No, don't shut the
blood
fuck.
bag?
No.
Anyone in the chat? Any young strapping lads or
Oh,
lasses
no.
filled with healthy blood? Do you want to be Adam's
Well,
blood
I'm
bag
waiting for.
donor?
Where's Gemini? I'm waiting. Here it comes.
Gemini. Hey Gemini. How healthy are you, Gemini? Let's get a health profile, Gemini. Maybe
You're
you
so
can get
bad.
close. Maybe you can get as close to Adam as you possibly could. You could be literally your blood could be inside of Adam.
We'd have to take showers together. I don't see how it would be avoided. Do you think Siamese twins just get in the shower together, don't they? I mean, one of them doesn't wait outside the curtain.
Gemini, don't you want to go? You could be full
Let's move
human
on.
centipede
Stop.
Adam.
Stop torturing our fans, okay? Knock it off.
I'm sure we have
When
many fans
we're
who would
50
love so generously to donate their blood to you.
We're 15 minutes into this video, so you gotta stop talking.
Daniel the
okay?
Bruce says, "Pick me, Adam," in all caps.
Danimal, aren't you married? You're fucking married, dude. You're married to another guy. Please,
Drain me, Adam. Drain me.
let's
And
move
is
on. We're watching a video, so
Adam, for next
I
year,
don't lose sleep
you gotta
when
figure
become-
out what your blood type is. So if
really? My blood type is exactly like my attitude. That's how I remember it.
it's A. It's A for A team.
It's B positive.
There you go, guys. Or be positive.
It literally is B positive. Isn't that great? Be positive.
It is great.
That's a great outlook on life. Be
That's
positive.
true.
Why be pessimistic? Optimism
Why be negative?
is
You can be
free.
positive.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I feel sorry for the B negative people. Those B negative people.
No,
Ugh.
poor B negatives.
They should change the blood types just for that. I wonder if they are negative people. They probably are. Bastards.
Because of prosecutorial conduct, the possibly guilty man is acquitted.
And so, I mean, this is going to be the response, and I'm reading it already in some of the chat. And look, as a lawyer, I know what your answer is going to be. People are going to say, well, what about justice for Ron Goldman? What about justice for Nicole Brown?
That's somebody else's job. It's not my job. My job is to
Justice is God's job.
moment.
That's somebody else's
Calm
job,
down.
not mine.
God damn it.
I don't know. It's weird because on one hand, like, there's obviously an argument which I agree with, which is that our Constitution provides that every person has a right to defend themselves. Like, sure, but it seems so flippant to be like, that's someone else's problem. Right?
Yeah. It's a harsh,
Like,
it's
what
a harsh
about
world.
the justice for the murder victims? You're like, yeah, that's someone else's problem.
Yeah, you know who was thinking about the justice of the murder victims? That guy who was dumping blood all over the socks, for heaven's sakes. He was like, yeah, it was my job.
Yep,
That was our job. We messed up.
that's true.
get for the defendant. I'll give you an example. What if O.J. Simpson, after the chase, had been in an accident and been taken to the hospital, and one of your self-righteous viewers who doesn't think that anybody should do anything...
Dude, shots fired at the chat right there. One of your
Self-righteous chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally.
except fight for the
Oh, I
victims.
shan't be alone
What if
here.
the doctor, who
See?
believed strongly
wasn't
that
so
O.J.
bad.
Simpson was
It was
guilty,
horrifying.
was asked to
But still,
cure him of what could have
I
been a
thank you.
life-threatening illness? Would the doctor do anything but use every resource available to him to save this man? Would he think about the victims at this point? No, he has a job to do. His job as a doctor is to save the life of this, what he believed is guilty person. My job as a lawyer, and it's a very important job. And if you don't like it, folks, move to Iran and China. There's no problem. Lawyers don't represent people the government say is guilty. If they do, they get themselves in trouble. But in America, lawyers defend the guilty and the innocent alike. And the reason we defend the guilty is to make sure the innocent aren't prosecuted. The vast majority of my clients have been guilty. The vast majority of every criminal defense lawyer's clients have been guilty. Would anybody want to live in a country?
That was something I had never considered before this interview. Is that, yeah, most of the people are guilty. That's crazy. Like you never get this
Thanks for your assistance, Lee.
people most of the time you're
I've
defending
taken the liberty to send you a
guilty
share of your fee.
people.
And see, that's so. But that is what's so crazy. With this.
It's
Like, how do
crazy.
how do you as a person rationalize that and live with that in your mind?
You
that most of
become
the
woke.
People you're defending are
You
guilty.
become woke. This makes perfect sense why there is the divide, the political divide, because in the woke ideology, these people aren't guilty because they are lashing out at an unfair system. Sure, they're superficially guilty of the crime, but they've been pushed into it by society.
They don't have free will, Adam.
Yes, it's perfect. It's perfect. No wonder Sam Harris, the ultimate lefty, doesn't believe in free will. Like he's rallying, he's arguing the same post hoc justifications for crime that all these people are forced
Yeah,
to
but
argue.
but he doesn't make these arguments that people aren't like culpable for their behavior.
He
I don't
did
know.
in the book Free Will. He did, yes. He definitely did. He's
No, but
deep-
I mean, he might make that argument like in terms of philosophically, but he doesn't make that argument in terms of like legally and how society should function as if people don't have free will.
he said in the book Free Will that we should contemplate restructuring the legal system.
Oh, okay,
to,
wow.
to be aware of this. Yeah, exactly.
So wait, then why does he not apply that same charity to Donald Trump?
You know why. It's a TDS. He doesn't have free will. Very few people have free will. It's a very short list. It's
It's
Adam,
a very short list that is
Sitch.
comprised mainly of our donators and super chatters.
Yes. Oh, Gemini finally showed up. Hilarious. Curse YouTube. I can't super chat with my phone.
There you go.
We
So
would've
it's
seen
okay, Gemini. We know you're all rushing to get into that blood game.
And you're not supposed to be super chatting either, Gemini. You said that you were on furlough or something like that. So do not super chat anymore. Your donations are no longer accepted. You're welcome to chat normally, though.
With the majority of us were innocent, Iran, China, Belarus, Russia, go there. But if you want to live in a country
Yeah, I love it. I love the. That's a conservative argument all the time, right? If you don't love America, leave. He's
Well,
like,
I mean, to me, it's funny because this seems like a bad like this part's I guess persuasive about the America stuff, but the first answer he gives, it just comes off as way too flippant to be persuasive. To give like the classic movie villain, like it's just my job, it's not personal answer. To this, it's not. I don't think that's the answer people are looking for.
it's the mortgage. Got to pay the mortgage. The mortgage excuse always works.
where the vast majority of people who are convicted of crime or guilty live in America, where zealous defense attorneys don't let the government get away with anything. We push them. We argue. Yes, technicalities. You call it a technicality. I call it the Constitution.
Oh, snap!
Yeah. Smacked him.
You
Viva
call it
didn't even know
technicality.
because look, he's reading the chat. He's like, "What are you going to ask about Epstein?" Right now,
I
that's what
call
Viva.
it
America.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
dude.
And so I'm going to continue to defend people you think are guilty, and you're not going to like me for it. And too bad. I'm right, you're wrong.
Well, and right now. You use
See, that's a complete Sitch ending. I heard that and I was like, yeah, that's Sitch all the way. I'm right, you're wrong.
How dare you, Adam? How dare you?
But you have that kind of confidence when you know that you're right. You do.
Damn.
You all the time you do that kind of stuff.
That's true. That's true.
I'm right.
But I am right.
I am right. You're wrong.
I think part of the issue I have too with Dershowitz's moral rationalization here is it's like if he was defending, if he's a public defender, if he's like defending all these random people, who don't, can't afford it or very poor or whatever, it's like, okay, like, it literally is his job. Someone has to do this job, right?
Yeah.
This is provided by our Constitution, and it's an important part of our society. But I feel like you lose moral weight. I feel like you lose the standing to act like you're like this moral arbiter protecting society from slipping into the pit, the moral hazard pit, when you're getting paid millions of dollars by millionaires to do this job. Then it feels a little different.
Yeah, there is that. There is that. Yeah, it's tough to convict a rich person because they have all these ways of implanting doubt into the jury, and that's the standard doubt.
Well, and also, there's like thousands and thousands of lawyers in America that would die to be OJ's lawyer, that would die to be Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, just for the fame, just for the money, just for their career. Like, it's not like he's the last he's sort of acting like as if he's like this last bastion, like protecting America from slipping into being China. Well, at least by the answer that he's given.
He's actually just the lawyer at the front of Satan's line to defend Jeffrey Epstein, right? He's at the front of the line when Satan goes, who's going to defend this asshole?
Yeah, you! There any other mysterious stranger around here?
But it's an interesting moral question, because again, I understand that obviously everyone's entitled.
Sure, be my guest.
What must all trauma team medics swear to uphold?
They just not rub me the right way.
The hypocritical oath!
He's pitching it like,
okay,
there's a crowd.
What's going on?
Hey there, stranger!
None of them want to
Brendan,
stand up
your
and
friendly
defend
neighborhood
Epstein,
SCSM.
The call
and the
goes
nicest
out.
AI in all of Night City.
Brave Alan
You can
Dershowitz
select
is
from
the
a
only
wide
one
range
to
of
raise
beverages,
his hand and
or
say,
just drop by
I'll
for a
do
chat.
it. I'll take
Anytime.
one for the team.
Now
right?
it's your turn.
But really, there's
What's your
hundreds
name?
of guys out there that are like sucking on Satan's. Oh yeah, I'll do
Why
it.
am I
Here, let me.
talking to a
I'm
schism?
done sucking Satan off right now.
My name is
Get
V.
out there and do that.
Pleasure to meet you, V.
Yeah, no, I
Do you come
know.
here often?
Seppuku Sushi brought the point that prosecutors do go
No,
after people.
first
Public
time
defenders
here.
Do tend to
Wouldn't
suck.
you know?
I agree. That is a big
I
problem.
could tell you weren't from around here.
But
What with that homesickness
I
of
like
yours.
the way that I
And you
look
know
at
what the
it
best
is,
cure for homesickness
I was
is?
thinking about this yesterday.
A
is that
sweet, refreshing,
if you're getting
lightly
paid a lot
carbonated
by
beverage.
society,
Okay, you got
that's-
me.
or
I'm
by-
sold.
if you're getting paid a
Sold?
lot to do something,
Nothing's
that
gonna be
pleases
sold
society,
here,
like a lawyer,
because you know what?
that's generally
I'm gonna give you a can of
perceived
Night
as
Cola for
society's
free.
valuing whatever your job
Brennan,
is,
right?
right?
That's right.
And so it's weird to me
Gosh,
to make this argument
so cool
that you're
you
like
remembered.
bucking society,
Even for a
fighting
simple
society by
SCSM.
being rich and famous. Like, I don't know, it just seems weird to me.
Yeah.
That those
Cool.
two things don't seem
So,
to go together
did
in my
you
mind.
want something
Massively
from me?
hypocritical.
Oh, yes.
Massively hypocritical.
Well, I do apologize for
But
taking
that's the
advantage
whole.
of you
That's
at
the
this
whole
early
social
stage
justice
in our
angle.
friendship.
The
But
legal system is unfair.
Could
and
I
it is
ask you for a
drastically
favor?
unfair in that
What happened?
Right.
situation.
See that container in front of me?
Sure, I mean,
It's
I know people
completely
personally
blocking
who
my
have
view of
been
the street,
victims
depriving an
of
SCSM of its
overzealous
greatest
prosecutors.
pastime.
It's been preposterous.
Could you move it a bit
I
to
mean,
the side?
it definitely
I'll
happens. I'm not
reward
one
you
of these
with
people
my
saying, "Oh,
undying
you gotta get it
gratitude."
right."
Even
I
though
don't think that whatsoever.
technically I don't stock that.
I'll
Yeah,
see what I
like
can
what
do.
Barnes had to say about defending people. That he wouldn't take a case where he believed the person was
Thank you,
guilty
V.
and
Boy,
felt
are you
he
strong.
wouldn't be able to
Here,
hide that.
have a
and
refreshing
reflect
beverage.
his
On me.
prosecution of the case.
Catch you later,
Right.
Defense
Brendan.
of the case.
Catch me?
That makes a lot of sense.
Why?
Because I could.
Will I be falling?
I
It's
want to
just
fight
something
for
you
innocent
say as
people. Who
a
doesn't
way
wanna
of
do that?
goodbye.
Of course.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like we.
I don't,
I
because
feel like
catching
part of
has
our
nothing
show
to
is
do with
fighting
goodbyes,
innocent
but
people, like Jordan Peterson.
oh well.
Innocent.
Don't humans say
Kyle
the
Rittenhouse,
darndest things?
innocent. Like
Catch
we're
you
out there.
later,
Who
V.
doesn't want to fight for innocent people? We all do.
What a neat
We're not doing
phrase.
Jeffrey Epstein innocent. Oh wait, no. We're not doing that show, right?
Right. Though there is which I agree with that completely. But there's a problem with that, which is like lawyers can think someone's innocent at first,
And
and then
discover.
they find out if they realize they're guilty, afterwards.
Right.
But-
Yes.
But you can't just like drop. I don't think a criminal defense attorney could just be like, oh, well, I'm gonna drop you as a
Recuse
client 'cause I think
yourself?
you're guilty.
Yeah.
You can just.
Dear
do that.
Judge, I'd like to recuse myself from this case. I found out the guy's guilty.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that would go over very well with the judge.
You probably can't even say that. You can't say that.
No, you
couldn't
get
say
you
that
get
to-
disbarred if you just fucking say that. Or-
Oh my God. Yeah, defense attorney sounds like like this is a job for psychopaths. Unless you're a psychopath, do not take the job of defense attorney.
Well, that's why I said, people like Dershowitz who have that urge, that inside, that interior emotion to want to go against the crowd, go against the mob for whatever reason, even if it's for bad reasons, for selfish reasons. I mean, that's still a very valuable asset if that person exists in society.
Yeah.
You need people like that in your society.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Society's
just
like
unfortunate. They
it's
end up
so
in
bad.
Terrible people.
It's so bad. We're making an argument that there's a place in society for psychopaths. They actually serve a function.
Right.
It's so
And they
crazy.
do.
Society is full of ironies.
It is.
It's crazy.
It's
the word you get
complicated.
just for a guilty.
It's complicated.
As Adam's father would say, it's complicated.
Well, I don't know. It's complicated. I haven't watched Tim Pool in forever. I don't know if he's still on the copium track, if he's still laying down coke vids every day. But I do notice there's this one mannerism that he does constantly. And it's kind of weird. I find it interesting.
You got any
for the
doorbuster
psychology
deals
of
in
it
Yucatas?
because
Please,
people hear the
Shop at the
declaration
big
and they
pleasure.
never hear the take back.
いらっしゃいませ。
He always does these super extreme takes and then goes, oh, well, that's probably not true. Like he
walks
does
it back a little
he
bit.
does
you're
walk
right.
it back, but he does do these super extreme takes and then walks it back.
Interesting.
That's like a normal, that's almost a Tim Pool-ism.
That's a good technique.
Yes, it's a great technique because you can always say, oh yeah, I walked it back right after that. All you have to do, play the rest of it. I walked it right back. But as an audience member, you want to hear those extreme takes. You really do. And then you just ignore the take back. He really meant it. He didn't mean that take back. I could tell.
The client is going to look at you and say, you're not getting justice for a guilty client. You are actually committing an injustice for the victim.
I'm not committing it. The judge is committing it. The jury is committing it. The prosecutor is committing it. The only person who's not committing it is the defense attorney. When the Catholic Church decides
Wait.
Everyone's guilty
question
but
you
me.
committing it, the
You get justice for a guilty client, and some people.
people you think are guilty, and you're not going to like me for it, and too bad. I'm right, you're wrong.
Well, and now you use the word, you get justice for a guilty client, and some people are just going to look at you and say, you're not getting justice for a guilty client. You are actually committing an injustice for the victim.
I'm not committing it. The judge is committing it. The jury is committing it. The
I have a
prosecutor is
grave
committing it.
task for you.
The only person who's
The
not
literal
committing it is the
case.
defense attorney.
The
When the
netrunner
Catholic
is
Church
still
decides to not...
But what happens to her
The
is
only
whether
innocent
on the
person.
trial
Of course. Yeah.
or
Defense
your
attorneys.
discretion.
We just
Bugbear
talked for like
is trapped
15
in the
minutes about
net.
how they're all
If
psychopaths,
she
and now we're
jumps
going to say,
out,
yeah, they're the only
tiger
innocent
claws
party here.
stand ready,
The world is
waiting
guilty.
like vultures
The
to
psychopath
tear to
is
shreds.
he's completely innocent.
And if she doesn't,
I understand his
all
argument is
synapses
that,
will fry soon enough
I'm the only one whose job it is to do
counting
this.
on you.
Everyone else is not.
See
their
the
job.
details attached.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like that doesn't shield you from responsibility here. Like the way that he's saying it. Just because something's your job doesn't shield you from responsibility of immoral or unethical actions.
People walk off jobs all the time when it conflicts with their moral sensibilities. Like that's a very human thing to do. So yeah, no, I agree with you. This is complete post hoc rationalization of his position. There is no defensible position here. It's super weird, and one of the things that's fascinating about it is you do need. What's your take on his argument that it's better 10 guilty people go free than one innocent man killed?
It depends what those 10 people do.
Okay. Just for the sake of argument, let's say they're all guilty of the same crime. Let's say it's murder because then it's more interesting. Like obviously, if it's a parking ticket, who cares?
No, but I mean, like, is there a question that those 10 people are going to kill again, right?
Oh my god.
Because then it becomes a trolley problem. Then you're saying,
It
well,
does. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, the thing is, most people will just empathize with the innocent person that's rotting away in jail or facing the electric chair, and they're like, no.
right.
That's too much injustice to bear. But you're right.
No.
Like, oh, you let the 10 guys go, and they all end up killing. Like, they're all serial killers, let's say.
Like,
and 100
right.
people die, so that one innocent guy doesn't end up going to jail.
I think you have to separate the moral question from the legal question, even though people don't like to do that. Because it makes sense to me that the country should have the attitude of, innocent till proven guilty. You need to make sure that, everyone's treated as if they're innocent first. That's the way the law should be, 100%.
Yes.
100% agree with all that stuff. But then if you ask this specific moral question, I think it's a little more gray when you say, well, it's better that 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person be convicted.
Yeah.
Again, depending on, I guess it would depend entirely on the threat that the guilty people, if the guilty people don't pose a threat, if the 10 people are murderers, but there's no chance that they're going to kill again, then I would agree, yes, it's better that those 10 go free than the one innocent person be charged. I would agree with that.
I agree too, yeah. The future killing, though, complicates it even more.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
they got
assuming
away
when
with murder once. They're probably predisposed to think they can get away with it again.
Maybe, but I'm assuming when Dershowitz says it, he's not referencing it in that future take of what the future potential behaviors are.
We also have a problem in that we're kind of our tribe is like objective truth, seeking objective truth, and it's so difficult if you're arguing a defense case where the guy's guilty. You're literally arguing against objective truth. So, like, we already know that this guy's guilty. Like, end of story. Let's go home. It almost seems like, in one society, you could conceive of a society where people would say, well, as soon as we know for a fact that he's guilty, why are we even having this trial?
But I don't know. I can't really conceive of a society like that functioning unless we're all like magical, enlightened individuals. Because a defendant needs to trust his lawyer. They need to trust that their lawyer is not going to like turn on them and suddenly say, "Oh, I think you're guilty," and I'm turning you into the police. Like, I don't think the system can function that way. To me, this is like one of those weird problems where, like, as you said, what do? You're the defense attorney. You know your client's guilty. You're suddenly not seeking objective truth anymore. But I don't know how else the system could function except the way it does.
Our juries have changed a lot too culturally because of all the CSI shows and whatnot. So they're much less likely to convict without some sort of physical evidence. Like back, I'm sure like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, they were convicting everyone.
Oh my
God! Oh, Billie Jean saw you rob the liquor store.
Yeah. Put him in the. Let's string him up now. We have all we need here, right? Yeah.
Yep.
But now they want, blood spatter. They want all this physical evidence. They want to know. They don't want to question whether they're putting an innocent person behind bars. And I would have a tough time sleeping at night knowing I put an innocent person away. I think a lot of people. There were the guy that Dershowitz was trying to save. I think everyone on the jury had said it was a mistake to convict him, which they obviously have regrets. Yeah.
Right.
Like they're like, my decision is to want to put this guy to death. And I'm sure a lot, like enough of it was probably rationalization. Like the guy turned out to be a good guy that saved a bunch of people. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to kill somebody who did the right thing.
And that's why, as you were saying earlier, that's why ideology, specifically woke ideology, but anything that's strict, is so appealing because then you don't have to grapple with these complicated moral questions that don't have clear answers. You just say, oh, this ideology spells all the answers out for me. I don't have to think. I don't have to have free will. I can just let someone else choose.
That is the purpose of an ideology.
Yes.
David Sloan Wilson spells this out perfectly. He says that all ideologies
supposed to believe,
create
huh?
a stylized
runners
version
stick
of the
together.
world that
Had
that-
enough trouble
that
with her.
point the path towards justice and the path away from justice perfectly clear,
Right.
so that every single individual, no matter how smart you are, knows exactly how to behave. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of ideology.
It's fascinating because you could say like, oh, like a politician's job is you're delegating responsibility about like governance to someone else. But I don't think most people conceptualize that an ideology's job is to delegate
Governance to you. Yes, exactly.
delegate moral responsibility away to something else.
Yeah, yeah. This is the power of ideology. That's why I've changed, man. I went from not liking philosophy to the total respect for how dangerous philosophy is.
Well, it sounds like you still don't like it. You just think it's dangerous.
The woke stuff is super scary. It is super scary because you just realize, you hang out with enough people and you realize this is animating this person.
Right.
This way of looking at the world is animating this person. We'd talked about doing the Charlie. Well, I don't know Charlie's last name. Charlie, he's the Charisma on Command guy. Yeah, he did an interview with Vosh, and Vosh, you could see in that interview Vosh being completely animated by his ideology, and that's one of the things I found super fascinating about it. But at the same time, you could see Charlie being totally animated by his philosophy, and they have a conflicting philosophy in that you should always do good in the world. That's kind of Charlie's philosophy. I think Bosch is a little flexible on that one, but they share this ideology that you can't do good in the world until you grab attention. So while Charlie doesn't necessarily like what Vosh is doing to grab attention, he respects the fact that must be done. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do good in the world. So, and you and I are the perfect examples of how conflicted we are. Like, if we had, like, Tim has so much power to do good in the world, far more than us because of his popularity.
But he doesn't, though. This is the
audience.
problem. Right. This is the problem. This is the rationalization of links. This is the trap. They say, if I get more power, I can do more good because I'll have a bigger audience. And so they'll say, okay, well, I'm going to start selling out my morals, right? I'm going to give one-sided takes, or I'm going to be like Vosh. I'm going to say like very controversial, hyperbolic things in order to draw attention to myself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you say, okay, one day when I have a large enough audience, I'm going to change, right? I'm going to impart my wisdom, impart the goodness into the world to them, and I'm going to get the audience to change. But that change never occurs, because what they don't understand is that the audience becomes their jailer, becomes the thing that shackles them down.
That's a great way to put it, man.
And because Tim, I don't think this is true with Tim. I think it is true with Vosh. I don't think Tim has made this idea. I think Tim's consciously trying to improve his
thread the needle.
I think Tim is consciously trying to be popular and trying to grow his audience. I think that's intentional. I don't think he's doing it with this idea that he's going to bring about some positive moral change in the world, and that justifies him doing bad stuff. I think that is true with Vosh. I think he's saying the ends justify the means. If I can sucker people into becoming communists, it justifies everything, because at the end of the day, that's for the greater good. But the problem, what you said, is that with Tim couldn't suddenly change on a dime and try to give nuanced takes to his audience or something. He could, but he would just slowly start to lose his audience. It's not like all those people they're not going to suddenly start. He's not going to change a lot of minds, I guess. Is what I'm saying. I mean, we're seeing this. We saw this with a lot of the Trump stuff. So many people would be so on board with certain public figures as long as they were towing some sort of line. And then the second they start going against the line, they turn on them. Actually, a better example of Trump stuff is Bernie Sanders, okay? This is actually the perfect example. You had Jimmy Dore, Kyle Klinsky, all the lefties, all the commies. They were so on board with Bernie Sanders. They're like, Bernie Sanders is the way, Bernie or bust, blah, 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 blah. And then Bernie says we should support Joe Biden for president. And all the leftists
he lost them all.
he lost them all. They all turn on him. He doesn't convert them. Even though he was their savior, he was their golden boy, they don't turn with him. They turn on.
Yeah. So Brett Weinstein talks about this, but before I go into that, the Tim thing, I think the Tim's greater good is fighting the media. I think Tim does ultimately think the media has changed into political propaganda. We need a functioning media. I think Brett Weinstein would agree on it.
If
that
that's
with
what
Tim.
he believes, I think that makes Tim look so much worse. I don't think that's what he believes, but if it does, that makes him look so much worse.
He's very careful, and I do believe that he is selling copium to people who want to believe. What you're talking about, Brett, completely pins with this argument that we don't have leaders anymore. We have influencers, and influencers can't serve the same purpose that leaders do. A lot of when I listen to Jordan Peterson, I think of this all the time. Like, we have a crisis of authority. The authority foundation, the moral foundation in respect for authority has not been nurtured in our society in so long that nobody has respect for any authority. They have respect for certain authorities, those authorities that fall into this influencer category, that say the things that they like to hear.
Don't kill me!
But as soon as those people say the things that they don't like to hear, their authority is taken away from them, and they are chastised. So the audience becoming your jailer is like the perfect example of that. Because they're trapped by their audience, and they have to continue to satiate, just like the rat that runs up to the cocaine spigot and like just does cocaine the whole time. They're just running up to these influencers for the cocaine. Right. But as soon as the cocaine stops, I don't like you anymore. You're not my authority. You're not my leader. You're some influencer that I liked back when. And you even it's so funny that the kids go to some different influencer. And they're like, oh, I can't believe I fell for that charlatan. I was a huge fan of Tim Pool for like 2 years. I fell into that trap. Which is just kind of the same thing as saying, yeah, I was addicted to cocaine for a while. Like, the problem is really you. It's not that
Let's see what you've got.
That person. And the problem is society.
Welcome.
We need leaders.
Welcome.
Like, if Vosh was working himself into a role where he could be a leader, where he could say to his audience, listen, this is a hard truth that you need to understand and respect, and he could keep his audience, then we'd be in a completely different situation. But I don't necessarily like how we're crafting a world where that doesn't necessarily seem like it's ever going to be a possibility.
No, I think that's very true. And I think it's also a product of because of the internet, there's so many different influencers and quote unquote thought leaders for people to turn to. So it's easy to dump one person and jump on the next person, which maybe that wasn't really a choice, pre-internet days.
Yeah, you had 5 thought leaders and you thought, oh, now I'm back to the other thought leader I was at a minute ago. Now it's like I have a million thought leaders.
Right, exactly. It's endless. I mean, there was a very interesting tweet thread I saw today where there was some guy who's communist saying how he feels like himself and a lot of other communists he knows started off as anti-SJWs. And you're like, that seems so counterintuitive. And they're like, oh, I got sucked into the right-wing pipeline.
Oh, good, you're back. So,
Sargon
I was saying...
Chris Reagan and Shoehead and all these people. And now I'm, free of that, and I'm just a fucking commie. And it's just like what you're saying. It's like, oh, they just jumped from one, influencer to the next influencer.
This is the big problem. Brett talks about this relatively consistently, and what is the solution to that? You're the big brain on the show, Sitch. Put some thought into this. How do we turn this ship around? We're in such a weird situation. And it's weird too because thought leaders are spawning thought leaders. Like Vosh, Vosh was
not
birthed
gonna
out
like
of
the answer.
Destiny's head. Like
It's ironic.
Destiny. Oh, you
Well-
got an answer already? Holy
Well,
shit!
I don't have an answer, but there's two problems here, and this is why I don't know if the answer is, if there is an answer, if it's solvable, which is these people are driven by two things: the profit motive, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
which would seem to play into the communist idea, but then there's still, even if you remove the profit motive, they still be driven by status.
Status.
Which I don't think you can ever get rid of, ever. Even though the communists pretend you could. And I guess that's the irony of Vosh and all the communists vying for money and status. They're claiming that they want to do away with the very thing that drives their entire life at the moment.
I never hear anything of Vosh that isn't somehow a status play, which is just so bizarre. Like you
He's
might.
going to flatten the hierarchies out. The guy who's more hierarchy status driven than anyone else on the internet is going to flatten the hierarchies. Look, just right.
That's not good. That's not. That's patently ridiculous.
V,
Everyone
you
can
are to
see it's
rescue
ridiculous.
Lauren
That's why it's
Costigan,
so funny.
wife of
No,
Bradley
his audience doesn't see
Costigan,
that's
my client.
ridiculous. They eat that shit up.
She is being held captive by the tiger
man.
claws.
I have some sympathy for the Vosh audience.
If you wish
because,
to
I
know
mean, I've
more,
worked enough dumb
read the
jobs to know.
attachment.
Man, you want hope. I'm not a.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess the first thing that brought us off on this tangent, where you're talking about the energy, I think a big problem is no one that I've heard really conceptualizes properly what's happening in these situations, and that's that human beings are basically bags of blood and organs that run on biochemical energy. Scott Adams actually does sort of talk about this in a little bit, where he says people will always go where the energy is, and that's very true. People are drawn to energy. They need something that gives them that biochemical energy, that motivation to press on every day.
Keep
And
going.
that's right. And so when you have someone like Vosh, who is, that's another reason why these ideologies are so enticing. It makes you tired. It makes you upset to have to realize that life is filled with these very complicated moral questions that don't really have clear answers. Your brain is not programmed to be comfortable existing in the limbo, in the in-between state. Your brain is programmed or designed by evolution to want to categorize things into neat little boxes.
Yep.
And so you gain literal motivational biochemical energy by believing that you can classify things in these neat little ethical boxes and follow the ideologies of socialism or whatever.
In the Thomas Sowell book on Marxism, he lays out how Marxism is the perfect ideology to drive people to power. It's the perfect ideology for dictators to use. And I couldn't help thinking of Vosh in that situation. Like, Vosh knows. I don't know if he knows it consciously or just intuitively, but he knows that that's a path to power. The interview, another fascinating thing about that interview was Charlie and I don't know the other guy. They run the channel Charisma on Command. They do a podcast. They did one with Brett Weinstein too. I encourage everyone to listen to, which is great. But they're ultimately wanting to be wealthy to do good in the world, like deliver water to villages in Africa, right? The ultimate good,
Really?
obviously. Clean water, yeah. We can do so much good by doing this. And Vosh's
I had no
idea of
idea.
doing good, Vosh wants to put together a super PAC so that he can get more Democrats. I'm like, oh my God, this is
He said this
like,
in their conversation.
yes. Obviously, obviously Vosh is interested in being president of the United States, two-term president of the United States. Like, Vosh's goal is power. Power. That's what he wants. He totally wants. He wants to be the most. He wants to be PewDiePie, and after PewDiePie, he wants to be senator, and after senator, he wants to be like. He's already thinking about the super PAC. How? Hold on. There's got to be some level of delusion going on here, because how do you make the transition How do you make the transition? And God bless his soul, Sargon tried to make this transition too, from YouTube pundit to actual politics, which I think is noble, because trying to actually change the world. Politicians are the ones that do it. That's your avenue towards real, tangible change in people's material conditions. He wasn't able to do it because he made a rape joke on Twitter. How is Vosh going to do it when he's advocating for like child? I don't even want to say
Well,
it.
when he said that they should nuke Israel, I think that's the
That
comment
too. That too. There's a half a
especially in
dozen.
America.
We've had this conversation before on other shows where we've talked about in the world now, the incendiary stuff is so incendiary that if you don't have a degree from Harvard or any kind of street cred, if you weren't Bernie Sanders, a member, a high-level member of the Bernie Sanders campaign, if you don't have some kind of accolades to break through the noise, you're making incendiary comments on YouTube. Vosh has done this very successfully, but how do you ever walk those incendiary comments back in an environment where you can walk out of the DMV and casually use the N-word in jubilation, and it comes back to haunt you 10 years later?
I don't think Sargon's rape joke, and I don't even think Vosh's nuke Israel joke or comment, I guess it wasn't a joke, it was a statement. I don't think that's gonna hurt. I don't think that's what hurt Sargon, and I don't think that would potentially hurt Vosh in the future, because you making a crazy comment only hurts you if it's a comment that your side doesn't like. And that's kind of what Trump tapped in on. He's like, I can say all the crazy shit I want as long as it's playing to my side.
Yeah, but he lost. You're on the old, like the media establishment. The media used this to defeat him successfully. The media defeated Sargon in the same way. But go ahead. I think,
but what I was gonna say is, I think the real reason Sargon lost wasn't because of the rape joke. I think it's because he ran 10 years too early. I don't think the mainstream public is on board with an internet YouTube personality becoming a politician yet, and they're not going to until people my age and younger become the mainstream. Then you'll see the shift occur, because these are the
change
people
everything.
Right, because they're the people who are watching YouTube, and so to them, seeing a YouTuber become president isn't going to be a weird thing.
That's like their Ronald Reagan. They're like, I know this guy. PewDiePie. He's my favorite. He's the one that got me down the alt-right rabbit hole.
Exactly. So 10 to 15 years, that's when you're going to see, I think, the changeover, where you start to see internet personalities be able to.
Yeah, that's fascinating. We'll see.
Maybe it's a little scary. I don't know. I don't know.
The media's gonna bring up the rape joke. If Sargon runs, bring up the rape joke.
Well, but it's possible.
They will.
You have to remember too.
They're devious.
I know, but you have to remember. So, in 2010, would anyone really care about the rape joke? I don't think so. They care a little bit, but not enough to hurt someone's chances.
In 2010 and 2030, you mean?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying 10. That's what my point is. I'm saying that the social norms about what jokes are acceptable keeps changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, I don't think they would have cared that much. 10 years ago, in 2010, the woke stuff wasn't so crazy as it is now. So in 10 years, we could be in a completely new world. Who knows what things are going to look like and what jokes are going to be acceptable or not.
We are. I mean, this Biden presidency is fascinating because, like, the word on the street is the woke shit's going to get 10 times worse. So you seem to be bucking the whole argument that that's going to happen. You think Biden is going to
when I see Joe Biden yelling at civil rights leaders.
No, that was great. I'm telling you, I got
calling
a lot
himself the white boy who supports civil rights. When I see all the leftists and commies on YouTube doing nothing, he's not even. Joe Biden's not even president yet. He's done literally nothing because he can do nothing. He has no political power yet, and I swear to God, Jimmy Dore spends all day complaining about how Joe Biden is destroying the country, even though he's not even president.
Yeah, they turn on each other fast. They're super low on the loyalty betrayal foundation. They're
But
like,
he's like, he hasn't even done anything yet, and he's like, oh, Joe Biden's like the worst president ever, and so that's why I'm not. You know, I see Kamala Harris, who I'm starting to agree with you now that I am worried about because she's 100%
oh
pander.
my god!
She's 100% pander. All she does is her
Victory.
Kwanzaa fucking tweet. Oh my
Victory.
Yeah,
I finally
she's-
won you over on something. Yeah, hell yeah, she's terrible.
It's interesting because when I listen to Joe Biden yelling at civil rights leaders, to me it sounds like Joe Biden.
Camilla would never do that.
She would
Not
never
in a
do that. 'Cause
bazillion
that's the
years.
thing. People might not want to hear this. Then people might not know this. I didn't know it either until I really listened to that conversation, which was not meant for public consumption.
No.
It was like a private call. To me, Joe Biden seems like a person who really has beliefs himself that he's trying to accomplish.
Yes.
And that he doesn't necessarily going to be bullied by people. But with Kamala, she seems a lot more like an empty suit. Just do whatever she thinks is going to help her.
Yeah. If the numbers
is
come up, oh, a genocide will get me reelected. She's like, okay, well, where are our
Well,
weapons?
I don't know if I'm going to go to the genocide level. But,
Where do we keep the weapons around here?
Right. So.
I don't know, man. She seems psychopathic to me. She completely seems psychopathic.
Well,
so.
and there's another interesting thing about that Biden call too, which I recommend everyone listen to. At least the end part, 'cause he doesn't really talk till the end. Is that he's completely cognizant.
Lucid, yeah.
He's completely
time.
lucid. He has a couple speech problems that come off as like stuttering. They don't come off as him having cognitive issues, which is interesting. 'Cause I thought he had cognitive problems too. Now, I don't know.
He has trouble remembering like names and places, but no worse than Sitch and I do on the show. I mean,
I can't remember.
what's the name of that movie? Like, yeah, exactly. Who directed that? Yeah.
No, but sometimes you would see he would start to say a word and he would kind of start to stutter, so he'd do that thing where they circle around to find another word they can use instead. But
yes. We should get back
anyways,
to our
we were watching a video.
Yeah.
Nominates a saint. They appoint the devil's advocate, the person who has to argue the other side. In the Jewish Talmud, if there was a case of murder and the defendant was convicted immediately without any dissenting opinions, nobody presented the other side, the conviction was reversed. We have an adversary system, and we have to keep the adversary system. Look, people would have loved me if I had defended O.J. Simpson vigorously and lost. The fact that I won, the fact that I helped produce a not guilty verdict for somebody they believe is guilty, that's what gets them upset. Well, the system doesn't.
Thinking about my youngest.
Did he just combine vaguely and maybe? Vaguely?
He gave lip to
Vaguely guilty.
Big mouth on that one.
I don't
No,
know.
he said no. It got lag. He said they believe.
Oh, okay.
Don't look.
I don't know.
It doesn't work that way.
Over there.
Adversary system. And we have to keep the adversary system. Look, people would have loved me if I had defended O.J. Simpson vigorously and lost. The fact that I won, the fact that I helped produce a not guilty verdict for somebody they believe is guilty, that's what gets them upset. Well, the system doesn't work that way. You don't make the decision. The jury makes the decision. The judge makes the decision. The appellate courts make the decision. Blame them. Blame the prosecutors. Do not blame defense attorneys.
You're thinking
They're
about
the
my
last
youngest, Shinji.
bastion of
Yamato
liberty
broke off all
that
contact
stands
and started
between
working as a
you
hotel
and
receptionist.
oppressive government and oppressive prosecution.
Well, I would add.
Big
There's
mouth on that
another
one
issue.
since the day he was
On
born.
one hand, I agree, sort of, with that. But I guess the thing that's being unsaid here is, obviously, it depends on, the defense attorney has to operate within the moral, legal, ethical grounds of what they were supposed to be doing. And I don't know with the OJ stuff. I know with some of the Epstein stuff, there was lots of claims about, Dershowitz was potentially harassing victims.
We were, considering his flat ass
And all these other things that
Really?
would be
Oh,
outside the bounds of just being a good defense attorney.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Now, I don't know if any of that's true. I'm just saying this is in articles I've read. They've made sorts of claims trying to tie him together to see his behavior.
Lamestream media. You can't
The
believe it.
mainstream media, that's
Yeah.
right.
the mainstream media.
Big mouth on that
I
one
think that's
since the day.
Sarah Palin's.
And one thing where if someone shows, if OJ had showed up after a car accident at the hospital, would the doctor refuse to perform surgery? In a world now where we actually do have people suggesting, if you gather in a group and you have a certain illness, should you be denied care? You have people who actually adopt, who might be inclined to live by that type of ideology. I do think it's part and parcel of some form of a cancel culture type mentality where you want to punish the people who you disagree with. But
Look, if I were a doctor and Hitler showed up on my table, I would strangle him to death. Not as a lawyer or as a doctor, but as a human being.
Wait a minute.
You're thinking
I was
about
so confused when he said that because that
Yamato
completely
broke
Why?
changed
small
the entire
contact and
argument.
started working as a hotel receptionist.
Well, he said if Adolf Hitler, so it's like
He gave lip to
He,
some
yeah, he said
military hotshot.
if Hitler showed
Big
up, if
mouth
I'm
on
a
that one
doctor
since
and
the
Hitler
day he
shows
was
up on my
born.
table, I'm gonna kill Hitler. But that's his whole argument was that you have to
Don't look.
separate your personness from your job, and now he's just totally reversed that. I didn't understand why he said that.
yeah, a lot of backpedaling here.
But we're not talking about. We're talking about people who have been charged with crime under our system, who you think are guilty, may well be guilty, but they deserve the most zealous
I mean, because I guess the comparison would be like, okay, if you're, Nicole Brown's father, and you're a doctor, and OJ shows up on your table, you're gonna perform life-saving surgery on him? I don't think you are. Right?
Well, he's making a distinction between Adolf Hitler and someone who's charged of a
Contact
crime
and
in
started
the
working as a
American
hotel receptionist.
legal system, who's innocent until proven guilty.
Right, but I'm saying you can't. You have to compare like with like. There would have to be someone affected by Hitler and
No,
someone
you don't.
affected by a murderer.
No,
in
like
the
to
same
like.
fashion.
That makes everything. That's too hard.
Oh,
Let's
I
do
see.
it this way.
got you.
defense, and I'm going to continue to do it no matter how unpopular it makes me. You know, it's interesting. I used to be able to say that no criminal defense lawyer has ever run for public office or been successful. It's only prosecutors who run for public office. Every previous president who's been a lawyer has been a prosecutor. Joe Biden was a defense attorney. He was a public defender for a very short period of time, to be sure. But I think he is the first president in our history ever to be a public defender. Abraham Lincoln was a defense attorney. John Adams.
I'd be very interested to see if. So to me, Alan Dershowitz seems to be a single political issue driven person for the most part.
Yeah, Israel.
Israel.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate because it plays into that stereotype, the Jewish stereotype. But I would be curious to see if Biden is positive on Israel, if
really?
Dershowitz becomes like a huge Biden fan because he was also a defense attorney. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. He wasn't a defense attorney very long because he's like, man, all these people are guilty. I'm getting out of this racket. This is awful.
Talk about it. John Adams defended the British soldiers in Boston who were accused of committing the Boston Massacre. And he was berated. He was hated. His own cousin, Sam Adams, wouldn't talk to him.
I guess this is where I have such a problem with what he's saying. Because I agree with the concept. But I don't think you can compare British soldiers in the Boston Massacre, who everyone wants to die, and no one wants to support them. You can't compare that to defending millionaires that are paying you shit tons of money that a bunch of people want to defend.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's a great point.
I
It
don't
is a
think
great
that's
point.
I don't think that's a good comparison.
He's pitching himself as the guy who stands up in the crowd where no one will stand up, when really he's a guy in a group of people like struggling to get to the front of the stage to get the golden ticket. He's like stepping on heads, crushing people to get a chance to defend these people. Yeah. No, it's yes, it's very artful what he's doing here.
I'll be right back.
But
Yeah,
he did the right thing.
It's great that
Okay,
you're
now
pointing
I'm
it
going to
out.
ask you
It's great that Sitch is pointing it out.
something that I know people are asking themselves now. You say most defense lawyers have guilty clients.
Of course.
I think people will agree with that. Now, if you know, and I'm not talking OJ anymore, but if you know your client is guilty,
Right.
what are the limits to what you are prepared to do to try to successfully get an acquittal of?
Dershowitz does that wide eye thing. I don't know what he's doing it. When body language people assess someone's body language, they try to gather a baseline for each individual. Like Dershowitz, well, he's wearing glasses, so he couldn't be wearing contacts. I don't necessarily know why he's doing that wide eye thing, but he keeps doing this thing looking like he's having difficulty staying awake. So I think it's a tell. Keep an eye on
Of a
it.
client you know guilty.
I don't put him on the witness stand because
I'm
I will
getting you
not
outta
allow
here.
a client to lie if I'm his lawyer.
Your husband hired
I
me.
challenge
I'll make
the
sure you're
government.
safe.
You'll notice O.J. Simpson didn't.
He kind of just gave away the fact. Like any,
shit!
if you're in a jury now, any Alan Dershowitz
There.
defendee
You gotta help
who
me, I'm
doesn't
begging
get
you.
put on the stand,
That's why
you're
I'm
gonna
here.
think, okay,
Come on
you're
now.
guilty.
Let's get up.
If it's a general rule that he was not going to put him on the stand if he thinks they're guilty, I wonder if defense attorneys just come out and ask.
Head
I
down.
would be prone to just come out and ask, but I guess you can't really do that.
Not take the witness stand. Anthony Bailey wanted him to. I very much didn't want him to, not necessarily because of my feeling about guilt.
I had to deal with an attorney on that dentist stuff, and it was a just you didn't hear that, did you?
What you had to do with an attorney?
Yeah, I had an attorney on that dentist stuff, and dealing with an attorney on anything is pretty interesting. I mean, I got a lot of really good stuff out of it for writing and whatnot, and how the world works, and stuff like that. But the attorney is always trying to gauge your innocence or guilt. They want to know, they're going to be defending you. They don't want any surprises in court. So,
They also
I don't
want to know
know
if you're a
if
crazy
you
person.
have you? Well, I don't come off as a crazy person.
No, I know, but I'm saying
Yeah.
like no lawyer wants to take a client who turns out to be fucking insane.
Yes, yeah, that's probably the first thing that they look to
Yes.
separate themselves from. I listened to an interview recently with Nick Rekieta that was super fascinating. Nick Rekieta was doing, like, the one case that he wouldn't take were DUIs, which are huge. Like, a lot of attorneys take DUIs all the time. That's like their bread and butter. But he wouldn't do it because anyone who had a DUI, he could see, like, hitting his
How long
family,
you guys gonna keep
killing
coming
his kids and stuff like that. He just couldn't sleep at
Right.
night, knowing that he defended a person like that. So there's a big DUI case going in Southern California right now. This chick had, I think, 2 DUIs, and on the third one killed a family. There was a mother and father
Oh my god.
and 3 kids in the back seat, and all 3 kids lived, and the mom and dad died, killed by a truck driver. That's fucking horrific. That's totally horrific.
And I guess the DUI ones are worse because it's like, I mean, you're guilty. You're pulled over and they take the test and you're drunk. Like,
Yeah.
Like, question whether you're innocent or not.
Well, you're trying to argue it down. But I guess some people try to argue that they weren't guilty. I don't know how you do that. Let's talk to Nick about that. Sounds awful.
Innocence, he would have made a terrible witness. But ethically, you cannot allow your client to lie, nor can you lie. But you can challenge the government at every turn.
Well, it's funny because
I
it's not
like
just
that part.
ethically. I'm pretty sure if you're a lawyer, you tell your client to lie, that's illegal. You're getting big fucking trouble. So it's not just that.
Yeah, coaching the witnesses.
Well, you can coach the witness. You're just gonna tell them to lie.
They did
Give you
that
the hypo-
recently in the Trayvon Martin case. The witness that they had on the stand wasn't even the one on the phone call, which is bonkers, completely crazy.
Exactly. And everyone was like, holy fuck, that's insane.
Great miscarriage of justice.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? That's kind of like the Sox thing. You kind of wonder how much of this evidence is just cooked up by police and prosecutors. They seem like the overzealous ones.
Right, and that's what makes this such a weird morally gray area. Because as you said, the Trayvon Martin case is a perfect example. They literally had a fake witness testifying for someone else, and so I'm sure
Yeah.
stuff like this happens all the fucking time.
cross-examination. It's so bizarre.
Right. But then it's like, what do you do when you have the actual guilty people like OJ and Epstein?
Yeah. Ouch.
Hypothetical items, and people disagree, and your viewers will probably disagree. Your client comes to you and says, I just robbed a bank, and I've been arrested, and I'm about to be tried. And you're a great lawyer, and you know the only witness against your client is the bank teller. And there's a videotape that shows the bank teller, who identified your client as the robber, taking off her glasses and kind of making herself look pretty at the time that the robbery was taking place. Are you entitled to cross-examine that eyewitness and say, did you take your glasses off? What is your eyesight with your glasses off? Were you taking your glasses off just to, make yourself look, putting yourself in a negative light in front of the jury? You know that she identified your client correctly because your client has told you that. But are you allowed to cross-examine her in a way that casts doubt on her by truthfully making her acknowledge that she took her glasses off? That's a hard question.
All over now.
That's what I used to teach
You
in
better
legal
Delta.
ethics. And there's no good answer to that question. But there's a good answer to the question of if the government goes after your client and breaks into their home and illegally obtains evidence, there's a good answer to the question, are you allowed to keep that evidence out even though you know it's
Hey there.
evidence that will
Is
prove
there someone who can help
conclusively
you?
that your client is guilty?
my
So
mom.
there are easy
Tell her to lay
answers
low somewhere.
and there are
They'll be
hard
looking for your family and
answers, and there are
friends.
some that have
You understand?
no answers, and that's why,
Yeah.
in my experience,
wh-
criminal
what about
defense lawyers
Brad?
are among the most
Just focus on
ethical
yourself right now.
lawyers and the most ethical people I know, because
Hey,
they're
see
always
that car?
working on morally
It'll take you
treacherous
someplace
ground,
safe.
and we think about it a lot.
Thank
When I
you.
compare the
Look out for
ethics
yourself.
of criminal lawyers to the ethics of journalists, I mean, ethics of journalists sounds to me almost like an oxymoron. In the face of many of the journalists I've
Norman is
encountered,
secure.
present company
I'm
included.
informing
But when I
Bradley
talk
now.
about journalists who work
Thank
for
you
the
for
New
your
York
help.
Times,
Why is he
Contact
calling? He's not a
closed.
journalist.
Well, it is funny. I mean, this is the part I like. I mean, yeah, they're journalists, have no ethics whatsoever. Do you know the study that they did?
No, but I mean, he said president company excluded, implying that Viva Frei'd considers himself a journalist, which...
Well, I don't think he does, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he is kind of a journalist. What are you talking about? Sure.
He's a YouTuber who's a lawyer. That's not.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't say that's a
he
journalist at
does
all.
more journalism than any of these journalists do on these
Well, that's a
court
different- yeah,
cases.
but
Like
that's
he
just
reads
like-
a case.
The failing of journalism.
Yes. Well, there's a niche to be filled here. Some people want the actual truth, so they go to Viva Frei'd because they can't get it on CNN. I mean, his coverage of I didn't see his coverage of impeachment. I'm imagining that it's probably better than MSNBC. I'm just gonna go out on a limb here.
I don't remember. Yeah.
But I have watched a few of his videos on the election, and they're great. They're great. He totally sums up the court cases and what's going on, and how what a shoot the moon type situation Trump is in. He doesn't sugarcoat.
How you been?
Right.
Been all right.
There was.
I was thinking.
But
Could you drop by for
there's
dinner,
some pretty
maybe?
interesting ethical
Joss
questions,
has
which
worked
is
up a hankering to cook
if
for the
you're
family.
defending O.J. Simpson, and you're pretty 100% sure that
How could I
he's
say
guilty
no?
of murder.
Right, great.
But
See
you
you
also
at
know
Joss's then.
that the police have
Sounds
fabricated
great.
evidence on the facade. But you know that no one else knows this.
You
Figure
work
this
with the
out.
police. It's not morally ambiguous.
No, but so I'm saying, do you, as the defense attorney, say, do you say, okay, well, I'm going to let them admit that evidence into the case, even
Of
though I know
course.
it's fake?
Yes.
You're saying yes, you do.
No, OJ would fire you immediately. You'd go.
No,
"Wait
but
a
I'm
second,
saying,
I wasn't
for
wearing
instance,
those socks when I killed them.
I'm saying
OJ would-
hypothetically, OJ, no one else knows that you have evidence to prove that it's fake.
I was wearing my athletic socks to the murder. Of course, I didn't wear those socks.
No, but say he did wear the sock. I'm just saying for the hypothetical, okay? You're the only person that knows that the police fabricated the evidence.
Right.
And you say, okay, well, then it's a question of which moral system is more important to you, the fact that a guilty murderer should go to jail, or the fact that you have to defend your client to the best of your capability.
Well, you're predisposed to default to honesty. So you can always say, well, I had to do it because it was the honest thing to do, that we knew the evidence
Right, but
was
that's sort of the
fabricated.
rationalization.
Yeah. In this case, it works to your advantage because people like honesty, right? Like the
Right.
whole point of a trial is to discern honesty,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're saying
Sure.
that you can't lie; it's illegal to lie. I don't know what are you going to do? Are you going to side with the cops who fabricated?
I mean, well, first of all, I wouldn't be a criminal defense attorney because I would be the person that would let that evidence go into trial, even if I knew it was
Really?
fake, if I knew my client was guilty. Yeah.
OJ would
would.
just fire you though and move on to a new attorney. Remember, there's a
But
bunch
I'm
of
saying
attorneys
in
trying
this
to.
hypothetical situation, OJ can't just fire you because he doesn't. No one else is gonna know
Oh, okay,
that the evidence was fake.
right. And
So,
OJ would
or
have to
if
say.
it does come out later, you could just claim incompetence, not maliciousness.
OJ would have to say. OJ would say, I wasn't wearing those socks.
Yeah, but you're changing the point of the hypothetical.
Okay.
The
OJ's
hypothetical is the point of the hypothetical is to say, you're faced with this moral conundrum of
Right.
what's more important to you. What's more important to you, that a guilty man should go free, or the morality that you have to defend someone to the best of your capabilities.
I wouldn't be in that situation, but obviously the reason I wouldn't be in that situation is because I'm predisposed to wanting the truth, wanting the real truth.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
the
want to
truth
see an
is
innocent man.
conflicting. Because the truth is that the police fabricated the evidence, but the truth is also that your client is guilty. So-
I would default to honesty. I would let the.
that's the bullshit rationalization.
But honesty's good though.
No, I know, but that's you advocating. That's you not advocating. That's you giving up your free will to the moral. That's you delegating your morality and your free will away. Because you're saying, well, I don't have to make the hard decision because I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
You're just deciding that the honesty overrides everything because you don't want to make the hard choice.
Yeah. Who wants to make a
tough-ass question.
Who wants to make a hard choice here?
I know. That's the problem.
Are you going for it? Are you saying that the fake evidence should be admitted into court? Is that what
I'm
you're
not saying it should be. I don't think it should be.
But you're going to let it slide. You're going to
I'm
say.
saying, yeah. Well, let me be clear. I don't think it should be. I don't think police should do that. I think that's morally wrong completely. I'm just saying
Well, you
if I
should
was
punish
in
them
that
for it, then.
situation, that's what I would do.
I mean, they've done it a dozen times before. That's why they feel brazen enough to do it now.
Right, and and obviously, I mean, the reason it shouldn't be allowed is because there's so many times when they're wrong, and the person is innocent, and that's
They didn't
why
look
you
innocent.
you can't do that.
I felt he was guilty. He
Right,
had a
exactly.
guilty look about him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in that situation.
Journalists who work for CNN, journalists who work for many of the major networks, they wouldn't occur to them in a trillion years to think of any issue in ethical terms. I think through.
That's true. That's fair.
Do you know this study where they looked up, they wanted to see if moral philosophers were more moral than regular people? And this one guy looked up the library records of all the moral philosophy PhD students to see who returned their library books and who didn't. And the moral philosophers were abhorrent. None of them returned their books to the library. They were worse than anyone else. And he postulated it was because since they were studying moral philosophy, they were better at coming up with rationalizations why they didn't have to do it.
I think that's probably true in terms of if you study moral philosophy, it's easier for you to come up with justifications. But I don't think that returning library books is the metric.
You don't feel bad if you don't return your library book?
I need someone
Whether
for
you
a
feel
quick
bad
and
or
quiet
remembers
I
library
operation.
books
I think you need
anymore.
It
something a little
involves
bit
planting
better than
bugs in a heavily guarded area.
Who does
You have
library
the
books
brief.
anymore?
Read it.
Exactly.
Oh shit.
Oh, Adam. Oh, Adam.
I'm gonna write that.
We persuaded the prosecution that if they brought a federal case, they would have lost.
Nope.
So in the end, they
far.
agreed to a
Close
plea bargain.
enough.
No, he's on Epstein now. He's completely on a different case.
we should go fast forward to Epstein anyway.
Well, let's
But we noticed your client didn't look at the door.
You know what?
Trillion years to think of any issue in ethical terms. I think through every single issue ethically.
Ooh, you're good.
I have never
I know.
and would never do anything in my profession that was unethical or illegal or against my own personal principles or morality. But my own personal principles and morality say you must defend people you know are guilty. By the way, you almost never know. Client comes to you in the first meeting, not only am I not guilty, I did nothing wrong, and I ought to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. By the second meeting, the Nobel Prize is off the table. I didn't do this, but I did other things. The third meeting, well, I did this, but I had mitigating circumstances. The fourth meeting is I did this, can you get me off? So mostly,
I can attest. It's exactly how it goes.
they don't tell you that. Mostly they say, I'm innocent, how could you? When I met O.J. Simpson, first question to me was, Alan, how can anybody think I did this? I said, O.J., everybody thinks you did this. Everybody.
I got to say, Alan, that question to me would be the most solid indication of guilt. That the not say senseless denial, but the self-reflectionless denial of how could anyone think I did it, as though it's everyone else's fault for thinking. That's the type.
Well, also, it's funny because if you say, how can anyone think I did this? You're not saying you didn't do it. You didn't do it.
I know. Listen, you got in your Bronco and drove down the Hollywood freeway for 45 minutes. Come on.
Of pathology that makes me think someone is totally guilty.
And you have a right to that opinion, and O.J., of course, ultimately was found guilty of another crime in Nevada thereafter. And I'm not here to tell you, nor did I.
What does it have to do with anything?
He threw it in there because they wanted to get OJ for something. Yeah, they wanted to incarcerate him for something.
Right. No, but just it's an interesting
They
Why
got
would
him.
you bring that up? That
Leave
has
me
nothing to do with what's
alone.
being
I'm
talked
Alan
about.
Dershowitz. I had to do it. Leave
I
me
know.
alone. They got him
you-
eventually. They got him.
I know exactly. Exactly. That's exactly how
He
it
was
feels.
convicted already.
him
Can we move
eventually
on?
for
Next
fucking-
question.
They got him for kidnapping someone eventually. Okay, look, it's fine.
I ever. You remember, we criminal defense lawyers, we don't use the term innocent. We use the term not guilty. Not guilty is a technical term. It means that the government has failed to prove the elements of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. And there are
These are not good arguments.
juries
Yeah.
who come back and say, we think your guy did it. But the government failed to prove intent, failed to prove premeditation, failed to prove the corpus delicti. There are all of those. There's a famous story about that. Guy is on trial for murdering his wife. They never found the body, but there was overwhelming circumstantial evidence that he killed her. The defense attorney at the end of the case in the closing argument says, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you're going to be in for the shock of your life. When I count to 3, you look at that door, and the wife will walk through that door. He goes 1. He goes 2. Every juror has their eyes on the door. He goes 3. Nothing happens. He turns to the jury and says, you have to acquit. You all looked at the door. That meant you had a reasonable doubt. But they convicted. And afterward, he went to the jurors and said, how could you convict? You all looked at the door. And they said, yeah, but we noticed your client didn't look at the door.
You know what? I knew the story and forgot the punchline. That's what.
That's a funny story, but it's weird because it seems to completely contradict what he just said. His argument about not guilty versus guilty.
How so?
Because he was saying, well, we're not arguing they're innocent, we're arguing they're not guilty, and then I have jurors that come back and they say, well, we think that your guy probably did it, but it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. The state didn't prove it beyond reasonable doubt, so we're going to vote not guilty. And then he tells a story where immediately in the story the jurors do the opposite of that. They convict the guy solely on circumstantial evidence.
Because he didn't look at the door.
Because he didn't look at the door.
What kids will, okay, now incidentally, you a little bit earlier you brought up the question, the teller taking her glasses off, and it's a gray zone answer, and it's a gray zone answer that's going to bring us the perfect segue into what I know everybody in the chat wants to know. We're going to get to Epstein. We're going to
Look at his eyes are twitching. His eyes are twitching.
I know, I was going to say, look at that. That's the sad look.
You're a body language expert now too, Sitch. Look at us. We both are.
I know.
Hire us. We'll do all your body language work.
I think it's funny because I'm pretty sure, unless I'm like hallucinating, that that Viva Fry and Barnes just talked to a body expert
Yes, they did.
right before this.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
all the gritty of Epstein. But let's start with one of the accusations that I get mail, I get messages, and people say Dershowitz was instrumental in smearing the victims of Epstein. I think it was 2005 or 2008, when the first charges were being brought in Florida. You went to their MySpace social media accounts to drudge up dirt on them, make them look like they were asking for it, for lack of a better word. And you know, that's sort of the question of now, where you're dealing with not a witness necessarily, now you're dealing with a victim, but it's the same question that gets asked. What are you allowed to do to try to discredit the victim for the benefit of your client in their defense? So a lot of people are going to hold that against you. A lot of people will not forgive you for it.
Well, I'm not asking for forgiveness, and I couldn't care less if you hold it against me. I don't even know how to do MySpace or any of those. I'm not technical. I didn't do any of that. But Jeffrey Epstein's private investigator did, and he then wrote me a report which had material that raised questions about the credibility of the witnesses. If I had failed to bring that to the attention of the prosecutor, I would have been disbarred, and I should have been disbarred. You must bring to the attention of the prosecutor anything that raises questions about the credibility of witnesses. You say they're not witnesses, they're just victims.
There's your answer to the Sox question. You would have been disbarred, Sitch.
No. Sure. Well, that's the easy answer. Because that's you, again, you're giving up your morality. You're giving up your free will because you're saying, well, I don't want to be disbarred.
Yeah,
Right?
you got a mortgage to pay.
Right. But this is, to me, he has a better argument when he says, as a lawyer, my job is to defend my client, and if this information comes out, I have to do it. Otherwise, I'll be disbarred, because that's literally my job.
Yeah.
That's an argument that makes sense to me.
Almost done.
But it's weird. The thing that bothers me, I guess, is that it seems like his go-to instinct, like the first answer he gives to all these questions, is always shift the blame.
Yeah.
Like,
Not my
I don't
fault.
know how to use MySpace. You know, I didn't look for that information. The private investigators found that information, and they just gave it to me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
And it was my job to read it. If that information didn't come out, then obviously I would have been at fault.
It's weird to me, not weird, but it's interesting that his first instinct in all these questions seems to be to immediately shift blame
Sitch, he's just
and
a
then
good
to like
guy
walk it back
doing
with like a
his
better
job.
argument.
He's doing his job, Sitch. Why do you have to? Why are you raining on his parade? He's just a good guy doing his job.
He's just a good mental hike doing his job. That's true.
You're such a stickler here.
I know.
Innocent, guilty, murder. Sitch, he's doing his job. He's doing the job of.
Look, it's just business. It's not personal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just doing it. He didn't dig up the MySpace stuff. He wasn't there. He looked at the pictures. Probably longer than he should have, but.
Victims, of course, they were the people who were going to testify against Jeffrey Epstein. My job was to persuade the prosecutors that they were not credible witnesses, and they were not credible witnesses. Remember, people who are real victims can also tell lies or exaggerate or make up stories. And so the job of the defense lawyer, and I along with everybody else on the team, and it was a team consisting of lots and lots of people, brought to the attention of the prosecutors the credibility problems of some of these women who had lied repeatedly about other episodes, who had lied about their age, who had lied about a range of other things. These are issues that would have come up at trial. At trial, of course, you have to cross-examine witnesses, and it's the job of the defense attorney to bring up these issues before trial. And so, yeah, of course I did that, and I would do it today in any case. And if your son were charged with a serious crime in college or elsewhere, you would want me to bring that up. If a young woman at a college accused your son of improper conduct, and your son had evidence that she had lied about other people and made up stories and had this and that, you would want me to bring that up to protect your son. So don't apply a double standard and say what's good for your son is not good for.
I mean, if he was gonna make the argument that, like, look, I didn't know that Epstein was guilty, and so while I thought he was innocent, I was looking at these witness
When's the next delivery?
statements and looking for inconsistencies and looking at their social media postings and showing that they just, seem to have made up other stories in the past. While I thought he was
You
innocent, I'd say,
entered
okay,
and left like
that
a
makes sense.
ghost, V.
But it's
Nobody at
really
the
I
shrine
don't know, it's just
even knew of
really
your
hard for me to
presence.
believe that, like,
Excellent work.
he went into this
Closing the
thinking
contract
Epstein was
and making the
an
transfer.
innocent guy. It's really hard for me to believe that.
Yeah, he knew he was guilty. He definitely knew he was guilty.
I don't know, but it seemed like a lot of people knew.
Well, Epstein had him on the island. That's why Epstein had these people on the island. Like, he had Dershowitz by the balls. He totally had him by the balls.
No, but the island, when he went to the island, it was just all innocence. There was no bad shenanigans going on.
Well, now that Epstein's not around to refute that claim, sure. But Epstein, I'm sure when Epstein's talking to him about being his defense attorney, he's saying, yeah, nothing happened, but that's not what I'm going to say. He's like, what? What? Yeah, I'm going to tell him you were screwing 14-year-olds the whole time you were there. You want to defend me or what? Right? I mean, that was
maybe.
Epstein's game. That was totally Epstein's game, man. Yeah,
That's true.
Dershowitz is just here cleaning up the aftermath.
That's, it's interesting. I never considered that, which should be the most obvious thing to consider, because that was Epstein's entire role seemed to be.
Yes.
Sort of a honeypot for rich and
Hell
successful
yeah.
people. So
Hell
obviously
yeah.
that would also apply to his lawyers.
Of course. Of course.
See, here's the problem. If that was true, well, not the problem, but if that was true, I mean, Alan Dershowitz should just come out and say that that's what happened.
That he said that to him?
Yeah.
No, because obviously he ended up defending him and getting him off. That looks awful
No,
bad.
I understand
What
that.
are you saying? He blackmailed you and you went with it?
I understand that, but on one hand, yeah, that's why he wouldn't. That'd be the hard choice. That'd be the hard ethical choice to make.
What,
'Cause
to
on one
step
hand-
up
'cause
and
you'd
say,
be
Epstein is
confirming-
trying to blackmail me.
Yeah,
Yes.
if you said, look,
Yeah.
Epstein's dead, it doesn't matter anymore, but he blackmailed me. And,
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Oh my God.
But that's what I'm saying. That'd be so crazy because it would totally I feel like if one person did that, there'd be like the
Blackmail
avalanche
them.
of people that would come out, and you'd find all the people that came out and said that Epstein was doing this, and it would just. I feel like it would be such a good it'd do such a good for society to finally have a clear answer about Epstein. If this is the case, obviously this may not have happened.
Look at this is obviously Adam's speculation here.
Yes.
But look at the look on Dershowitz's face and tell me he wasn't blackmailed. That face just screams, I was blackmailed. I'm a body language expert, guys. I watched a couple videos on it.
That's you watched the interview that Frei'd did with the body language expert.
I've
and
watched-
you just absorbed it all.
I've watched a bunch of the body language videos, and most of them I am a skeptic of. So a lot of the things that they talk about, I think, are completely and utter nonsense. The thing that guy said, which made a lot of sense, was finding the baseline on a person, which you really have to know what
Right.
the norm is on somebody to tell what kind of personality they have.
I think part of my issue with the body language stuff is yes, I agree. First of all, it's like a lie detector. You have to find the baseline. Because some people are going to be more nervous than others. Some people are going to be
Right.
more calm or confident than others. But then it feels like using body language, you could see whether someone is calm or nervous. But I think that's probably about as far as it goes. I don't think you can tell whether people are lying. I don't think you can tell why they're nervous specifically. I think that's where you kind of get into troubled waters.
Yeah. I joke around sometimes, and people can't tell that I'm joking. And I always think, oh yeah,
Exactly.
that they didn't, which makes me think I would never lie purposely. Like I'm trying to be over the top and telling tall tales, so people don't know. Like, I've gotten in trouble. I always make this joke about how I now that Jessica and I are married, I can beat my wife legally. And the family thought I was literally beating her. It's like, well, that's a joke.
See, exactly. Or it's funny.
People
Sometimes when I'm
can't take
talking,
a joke.
sometimes when I'm talking to some friends of mine, I'll just like they'll say like, "Oh, what is X?" and I'll just make up some of like the most ridiculous explanation that's like so to me obviously not true. And I even
Yes.
think like, "Oh, this person obviously they're gonna tell from the tone of my voice, they're gonna tell from my facial expressions that I'm just fucking with them." But then a lot of times they like think that I'm
They
just
fall
telling
for
the
it.
truth.
I know.
So I was
they're-
like, I don't know, man. It's just
Oh, so bad.
it's
Yeah.
bad.
It is. You have to tell them. Listen, I'm not a wife beater, honestly. But once it gets in their head, it's just think
See,
it's
that's my problem.
impossible.
I would have just I would just run with that. Like once if someone doesn't know I'm joking, I
Yeah.
just never let up.
Don't mess with me. You're next.
Yep. Go into the next room, make like smacking sounds.
So good. They tried to pull her away and have a little like intervention with her.
Blink twice if you need us to call the police.
She was like, "Are you kidding me? He's kidding. He's joking." You don't what? Oh my god. It's comedy gold.
That of the criminal defense lawyer. Jeffrey Epstein didn't think I did a good enough job. He fired me because I only got a deal whereby he'd have to plead guilty to a felony. He'd have to
register
as a sex offender and not have any jail time, but still a sex offender and felony. Epstein said that's not good enough. He fired me. He hired somebody else who was local, who got him a better deal than the federal government prosecuted. He brought me back at that point, and my job at that point was to prove not that he didn't do anything wrong. He was being charged with a federal crime. Federal crime requires.
This is so weird. He's like, "Oh, he fired me. See, like I'm free of culpability." But then it's like, but then he rehired me later.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I have no free will in this matter, Sitch. Don't you understand? When someone fires me, when someone hires me, I can't decline or say
I
no.
mean, but see, this is crazy too, because it's like, okay, you can make all of these. To my mind, you can make a lot of rationalizations. Like, okay, you're hired, you're this guy's lawyer, you have to do the best of your job, will allow you to, because you have this belief about what your job entails and the importance of being a defense attorney in American society. Blah 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 blah. You make all these arguments, but then you're fired. Okay, you did the best you could, which, considering what Epstein did, it sounds like a fucking sweetheart deal. And you did the best you could, and he fires you. You're off the hook, right? You're off the hook.
Yeah.
And then then he hires you back. That's when you
Yeah.
turn it down. You say no.
Well, unless the blackmail thing is like, unless there's some believability to that.
Right,
argument.
unless there's some black. But assuming there's no blackmail, it's like, okay, then to me that's when it's more logical. It's like, okay, you totally got off. You totally out scot-free. You didn't have to make any sort of moral judgments. But then when you get offered the position back when you think he's guilty and you take it, that's when you lose all. That's when you lose the moral culpability.
The blackmail actually seems totally plausible. Obviously, this is hypothetical, or speculation. But the blackmail seems actually. It seems possible to me. It seems plausible to me. Let's put it that way, because. Look, he dragged his feet on the deal he got him. He didn't like the deal that he got him, which you would do if you were in a situation where you're like forced to do this without your will. Like he gets him the shittiest deal he can possibly get him, and then he fires him and then hires him back again after he gets the deal he wants. Who knows what he had on the other guy? Jeez.
Well, and also I don't know. I'd have to. This is annoying because it's like I can't. Because I did a lot of research into the Epstein stuff a while back. It's so funny. I spent all this time. I was gonna do an Epstein video, and then I didn't because I was like, no one cares about Epstein. And then it was
bullshit.
No, but
like
this
that
was
video
before,
would go viral.
This was
instantly.
before. This was before all the
Yeah.
he got rearrested and killed himself.
You have to do an Epstein video, man.
And that's
People
too
are
late now.
obsessed with this stuff. This
But-
is like.
But my point was, it's annoying because you do all this research, you look through all these articles, and in all the articles that I read, the journalists make it sound like Alan Dershowitz was directly involved with negotiating the insane deal that Epstein got. And the deal that he got was yes, he was registered as a sex offender, but even though he technically had to serve, I think it was like 13 months in jail, he spent the majority of his day in his own office building.
Oh, really? So it
Yeah, because
wasn't
they
even...
had this quote unquote work
Whoa.
release program for
Oh
Jeffrey
my
Epstein,
God, yeah.
where every day he would leave jail to go to his office, his nice, and oh, it's so funny. He was rich enough to buy a building, bought the entire office building, and just so he could go there and it could be close to the jail, and they could put
Wow.
whatever they want in the office. He could have any food or TVs or whatever the fuck he wants. He just can't leave the
Wow.
office. And so he spent, his days in the office, and then at night he'd go back to jail to go to sleep.
He was probably banging chicks in the office all
He was
day.
probably bagging dicks. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so all the articles
There
that
is
I
no
read,
justice. Yeah.
first of all, there is no justice. You see that that's what Epstein got, and you're like, this is insane. Okay, this is fucking ludicrous. And he also got out early for good behavior. It's supposed to be, I think, 18 months or 24 months, and he got out like 13 or something. But all the articles that I read all say that Alan Dershowitz was personally involved in negotiating this deal. So he's claiming, it's weird because he described that deal, but then he said that Epstein fired him for it. So I'm very confused as to what exactly his role in this was. But
Yeah, what was the better deal? Because it sounds like he got the Epstein, or he
it sounded
got
like
the Dershowitz
that's what I'm saying.
deal.
I don't know. I don't know.
A lot of subterfuge
An interstate
going on.
nexus. In other words, travel with the young woman in interstate commerce for purposes of having sex, and there was no such evidence. So we persuaded the prosecution that if they brought a federal case, they would have lost. So in the end, they agreed to a plea bargain where he would plead to state charges, get 18 months in prison, be a felon, lose his, have to register as a sex offender. That's what happened. At the time,
We have a Streamlabs from Genos Kun for $1 says, here's my tinfoil. Something happened with Ghislaine and his daughter when they were alone, and it happened to be filmed.
Oh,
So,
really? Dershowitz's daughter?
As he'll say later in this interview, when
Yeah, he
Dershowitz
spells out what happened on the island.
Yeah, when Dershowitz flew to Epstein's island, he said that Maxwell Ghislaine, who was kind of like Epstein's number 2 pimp.
She's in
like-
custody now, by the way.
Right.
They're trying to get her. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was, completely aware of all that was going on, and she was facilitating this. Dershowitz says that his daughter and her were like spending time on the beach together. So Janos is saying that his conspiracy claim is that they did something together.
They Mac Daddy. They had
That's
a
the
little
Blackwell.
lesbian love affair. How old was the daughter? This could be.
I
It's
don't
like gross.
No idea.
Just Lane's an evil one.
we only knew
On
about a
high alert
Is her
now.
name really Jiz
I
Lane?
lost contact with a vehicle somewhere in
Is
your
that really
area.
her name?
Well,
Jiz
it's spelled,
Lane.
it's spelled like
Eyes
weird.
peeled.
It's like Ghis Lane. Like I don't know what the
My
nationality
God,
that is.
her name is Jiz Lane.
Name is Ghislaine. You know what's funny? If you type her into Google, the thing that like comes under her subheading that describes her is socialite.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
Rich
weird.
people. Yeah, rich
Oh,
people.
it says she's British. Okay.
Messing with people.
handful of complaints against them. All the other complaints came up later. But I did what every criminal defense attorney do. I'm not saying I'm right because other people do it. We're all right. Every one of us is right. That's what we have to do. When a person is charged with a crime, you do an investigation. You find every possible hole you can in the prosecution's case, legally, factually, in terms of testimony, in terms of credibility. That's what you do. If you don't want to live in that system again, there are plenty of countries where criminal defense attorneys don't do that. But in America, if we don't do it, we're disbarred, and appropriately disbarred. I taught legal ethics at Harvard for 25 years, and I taught my students to do exactly that. And I'm proud of the fact that I have hundreds of law students out there challenging the credibility of witnesses, challenging the prosecution, and they're great lawyers, and I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, all those Harvard attorneys, dude. They're not making any money. They're not hanging on.
Yeah, those Harvard attorneys that go to criminal defense for
Yeah.
the person that can't afford it. Public defense.
Now, it's a difficult thing. Now, I understand and
Well,
I respect
you found
what you're
me.
saying in this
Congratulations.
pursuit of
Was it worth it?
They're all
a scale from
defending
1 to 6,
CEOs from like tax evasion.
I'd say I'm sitting at a strong 6.
Hell yeah.
I guess we both know what's
I
going
won't call
to
it justice
happen
because people will
next.
not accept it as justice.
Delamain
but for
misses you.
keeping the
I'm here to
system
shut
in
you
check.
down.
I
Your
personally
specimen has been
could never
processed,
stomach it
and
in a
we are
million
now
years. I
ready to
couldn't stomach
begin the
it.
test program.
No,
Really
I
appreciate it
couldn't
if
stomach
you didn't
doing
make this
wills
difficult.
I
and hedge
have a
funds
surprise
and-
waiting for you
No,
after
it's-
this next
I
test.
couldn't stomach it for a different reason, not because, I find it
So I'll
boring, but
just
because
give
I'm
you
not
a
sure that I
hint.
would feel good about myself at the end of the day.
I'm not sure
I'm
I'd feel
going
good
to
about
kill you,
myself helping rich
and all
people
the
get
cake
richer
is
at the
gone.
expense of poor
I
people. I'm not sure I would feel good about
truly
that at the
didn't
end of
think
the day.
you'd fall
That's
for
why I
that.
chose to represent
Okay,
poor
that's
people.
enough.
But that's so weird. He
You
says, I don't
chose
know
this
how I feel
path.
about helping rich people
Now I
get
have a
richer at the
surprise for
expense
you.
of poor people. It's like,
Deploying
Yeah.
surprise in
Viva.
5,
Viva
4,
Fry, what are you doing?
let's see.
no,
How
but
are
it's
you?
like
Turning
your,
soft bodies
your
into
most known
hardened killing
recent
machines.
case was Epstein. Helped
Page
a rich
70.
person escape justice from the law for
Okay,
multiple
killing
Yeah.
machines.
counts of sexual
Look
assault
deep
against
into your
minors.
newly blackened
Yeah.
hearts and
Like,
tell me
you
what
can't
you
use
see.
that argument. I'm sorry.
Actually, don't.
You lost the ability to make
Yes,
that
you
argument.
trouble.
Yeah,
It's still marshmallow.
true.
Half of my pro bono. I'm the only lawyer, I think, the only criminal defense lawyer in America who all through his career has done 50% of his cases pro bono. Most of my clients you've never heard of. They are obscure. Many of them women, many of them abused women. I represented a lot of victims of crime. For example, women.
Was that wipe the slate clean because he's doing all these pro bono cases?
Depends upon the 50% because I was thinking. So he's got OJ and Epstein. Like all he has to do is do 2 pro bono cases, and he's done 50%.
I hate you so
I want to
much.
see the numbers. What other cases is he taking? Like is he only taking high profile? Does he only do? Has he only done a
What
dozen
safety those
cases in
weapons
his life?
hold?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It turns out most
Yeah, I
humans
don't
are
Who
surprisingly
killed their husband
fragile.
in an attempt to prevent
surprisingly
their
vocal about
abuse.
how fragile
I've
they are.
represented people who
Going
were
back
locked
to
up in
Delamain
mental
really so
hospitals by
scary.
their husband
You
who
gotta
wanted
drag
to
this
steal
out.
their money
I
or
let you
wanted to
survive
have
this
a
long
divorce
because I was
Italian
curious
style
about your
or things of
behavior.
that kind. So
Well,
I've had a
you've
mixed.
managed
See,
to
he
destroy
defends
that
the
part
women's.
of me.
Okay, he defends the Wymans.
A bitter,
Fine.
unlikable
Who killed their
loner
husband
whose passing shall not
to
be
get out of a
mourned.
bad marriage? Yeah.
Yeah, look, they were being abusive. They deserve it.
You know, this psyche valve
Good
might have
leap
felt
out
more
with
credible if you
multiple
hadn't just tried to
clients,
flatline
and I'm-
me.
Unless you're being paid not to believe.
What's your point anyway?
Yeah.
Survival.
Very proud of my
You're
career.
still
I
shuffling
would
around
say
a
the only
little.
2 clients I wish
But
I had never
believe
met
me,
were Leona
You're
Helmsley,
dead.
who was just a tax case, but she
How
was
do you-
impossible.
The talking
And
is
Jeffrey
over.
Epstein, not
I'm
because
going
of the
back.
role I played in defending him, but because it led to this false accusation by a
Oh,
woman
we'll
I
get
never
there.
met. Right, but
We'll
those are
get
the
there.
only 2
Made
cases I
contact with the
regret.
missing vehicle.
No, no.
See, that's
Definitely the
weird,
oddest
too.
of the bunch.
You're saying I regret
Yes, particularly
defending
impertinent,
Jeffrey
that
Epstein
one.
not because he was
A
obviously
share of your
guilty and
fee is
horrible
being
person,
processed.
but because it made trouble for my life. Like that's just.
It's true. It's true.
It's such
yeah.
a weird answer. Why would you? You're saying the quiet part out loud.
Well, he can't say that Epstein was guilty. I don't think he can say that.
So, but
without
then just
getting-
don't say that you regret taking the case. Like that's just weird.
Mhm.
Why would you say that?
Because he wants to express regret for taking the case, obviously.
Yeah, but for only.
But he can't. The
self-serving
reason,
reasons.
but he can't. The reason he can't come out with a reason because he was guilty of sin. I regret taking the case.
I see.
Yeah.
So maybe you're saying this is like what you were saying. Tim was going to say one
It
part,
is.
like,
It's the big
wow.
part. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The big part is
It's
I
walk
regret
back.
taking the case. The small part is the reason.
Yeah, the walk back. Yeah.
I
Because he
got
made a bunch of trouble for me. Because he
Yeah.
blackmailed me, that son of a bitch.
We're going to questions about the Epstein.
And by the way, I've also defended people in death row who innocent, poor people who couldn't afford it, all pro bono. And so don't stereotype my career based on O.J. Simpson, Patty Hearst, Klaus von Bülow.
Well, Patty Hearst.
Oh, he defended Patty Hearst. I didn't know that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Patty Hearst is an interesting one. Patty Hearst is a case I could have taken because I do think that she was more a victim than a.
Let me tell you, you'd never be a decent criminal defense lawyer. Sorry to tell you that.
No,
You don't pick and choose your cases. You can't be a good criminal defense lawyer if you like Patty Hearst and don't like O.J. Simpson. If you're going to be a criminal defense lawyer, you got to buy the whole hog. You got to be willing to defend anybody who's charged with a serious crime. My criteria is the more likely the person appears to be guilty, the more unpopular, the more he's hated, the more I'm going to take because you won't. And then
So
That's not true though. It's not true. Like a boxer picks his matches. I mean, I don't.
well, this is very interesting, this comment, because on one hand, if we say that is true,
Mhm.
you say, okay, well, it's obviously that this is what drives him. He
Need some
gets his
new iron.
biochemical motivation from
You
this. He
choose.
gets off on this to some
Mhm.
degree, which
He
is
does.
fine.
Yeah.
Right. Which is fine because again, we need people like that in society, and I don't believe that true altruism really exists. So it's fine. But it's interesting because then it makes me think his whole moral system is kind of this after the fact rationalization for justifying the thing that gives him energy.
He likes to do exactly.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Which is true.
the way I'm sure most people operate.
He's being completely driven by his rush. It's like a
Yes.
cocaine addiction to him.
Right.
Yeah.
But the second problem is that I don't think that's a proper description of O.J. Simpson and Jeffrey.
Plus some brain dance or whatever.
Oh.
I think there were thousands of lawyers across the country that would kill
Yeah.
the
Totally.
money
Yeah.
and the fame to be O.J.'s lawyer, to be Epstein's lawyer, and especially with Epstein. When Epstein was first charged with this stuff, this was like, it's not like now where it's oh my god, Epstein obviously is. When he was first charged with this stuff, this was like people didn't know who Epstein was. They didn't think that any of his charges were true. So for him to act like, oh, everyone thought Epstein was totally guilty at first, like that's not really accurate whatsoever.
Yeah. You know more because you dug into the case. I just tidbits here and there. I don't.
I'm looking to buy some Preem streetwear.
Well, and also this
You've come
contradicts
to
what
the
he
right
was saying
place.
earlier.
This
Because
is
earlier
about
he was
me.
saying that he thought these people were innocent at first.
Mhm.
And now he's saying, but I want to defend them because everyone thinks they're guilty. It's like, well, then why do
Yeah.
you think they're innocent?
Usually when they come at me with blackmail, I figure they're guilty. I just, got intuition.
I need you to go to the specified coordinates and acquire a certain van for me.
Oh, that's
And
such
that's
a
why-
horrible
And mind
case
the
to be in.
local
That's like
fauna.
a movie plot right there.
By that, I mean the
It is a movie
animals.
plot. It's a
The
perfect
def-
movie plot.
Briefs
See,
attached.
if it's true, Alan Dershowitz was blackmailed, which I don't think he is. I think Adam's totally off base. But-
It's a screenwriter in me. I have to do it. I have
That
to
would
take
be-
reality up to the next level.
But see, if it was true, that's why he should admit if that was true, because he could make bank with a movie based around his life.
You're in a horrible situation. That's a horrible situation.
I think it would
Yeah.
be weird, but I think at the end of the day, people would see him as a hero for being brave enough to admit that he was blackmailed. If he was, I don't think he was, but if he was, I
We'll
think it'd be
find
seen
out.
as heroic.
If it comes out, oh man, it's gonna be epic.
Brigitte par le message.
Best lucky guess.
How's it gonna come out? Epstein's dead. Obviously, he
Life's
was
pointless.
quote
Get
unquote
shit.
suicided.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah,
what?
yeah.
You're a ripper,
remember
I
aren't
think
you?
that.
it's gonna
line.
come out.
Yes, for my people.
Ghislaine
I'll
might
make it worth your
talk
while.
about it. Ghislaine was there.
Is that so?
If she,
What did by how much?
if there was a chance that she would rat out some dark thing, she would be dead already.
Oh really?
Don't you
I
think?
don't know. I don't know. They're probably. It depends upon if you think. I mean, you're under the impression Epstein was. I believe Epstein was killed, but there was ineptitude at the same time. Like the ineptitude, was what allowed the killing. But there were some people who probably got in big trouble for the ineptitude. So they're probably
I think. I think the people were paid off that were supposed to be watching the cameras. I don't think they were just
Looking to get
incompetent
shit.
But that's
and somehow
ineptitude.
missed, you know.
That's ineptitude.
I don't,
same
you know,
level.
Being paid off isn't ineptitude. That's corruption.
Well, but the people who put people who could be paid off in charge
Oh,
were
okay.
the inept
Yeah.
ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Right.
It's still ineptitude. Like,
Yeah, okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
you
okay.
you can go all the way up the hierarchy to whoever's job it is to keep Epstein alive. And someone's fucking guilty of ineptitude.
Well, unless of course the warden himself is in on, which I have no clue if that's the case. But
Sure, totally, yeah. Could be. Definitely could. Has
Right.
he been on Epstein's island? Wouldn't surprise me. Like, I'm just saying. I'm saying you and I both probably believe that there are two forces here. There are the forces of all the people who obviously don't want Epstein flapping his big fat mouth,
right.
and then the forces that of of justice and good and all that is America. And there's ineptitude in between the people. Like the people keeping him alive had some ineptitude on their side. Otherwise, he'd still be alive.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think everyone's corrupt. There's like corruption exists, but not everyone is corrupt.
Sure, sure.
You got to find the sitch out there who's like, I won't take a bribe at any price. Seriously, you're not going to take a bribe. If you're guarding and they come to you and they're saying, we'll give you $1 million if you go take a nap. Sitch is going to be like, no, I am not taking a nap.
No, see what I do. This is what I do. I say sure, and I pretend like I'm going to.
People like you always got something to say. Wondering what you've got on
How
hand.
we doing this?
Yeah.
That's the move. Okay.
That will be your viral video.
That's the viral video.
Yeah. You just passed up $1 million to make like $50.
No, see, I passed $1 million to make $20 million with the movie deal that will be based around me, the heroic prison guard that fought against the corruption in the system. See, you gotta think big.
Yeah. You can't say prison guard. No one in Hollywood's gonna make. Hollywood's woke. No one's making a movie about a prison guard.
They'll make a movie about the down his luck prison guard that exposed the corrupt plot by whomever to kill Jeffrey Epstein.
You a part of the patriarchy, dude.
Well, whatever. Look, for the movie, I'll allow them to recast me as a minority. Okay, just so they feel better. Okay.
Oh, what would that be called? That's worse than digital blackface. That's like actor blackface. Evil.
Hey, man.
Come on, we're watching a video, Sitch. Quit talking. You talk too much.
You should stick to doing YouTube and doing your legal work, your money legal work, because you would not be a criminal defense lawyer because you allow your own personal predilections to influence who your clients would be.
Well, 100%.
Shouldn't
See,
you?
Dersh gave him a open-handed slap there, guys.
Yeah.
And he had every look on his face like he knew what he was doing. And V was like, oh my god. V was trying to back up.
He keeps his cool. He doesn't respond to it negatively. He just keeps going forward.
Yeah, no, he's great.
I don't, because to me, so it seems like basically Dershowitz is framing his moral system as the chief primary moral force in my life is just, I'm a defense attorney and I have to be the best defense attorney no matter what. Like he's abdicating any responsibility or thought process. When you say, I'm not even going to choose my clients, like, that sounds insane to me. Is he saying that like if someone comes in with a case and lots of money, he's going to take it automatically? Like, that's ridiculous.
I'm
Obviously,
wondering.
he makes decisions about who to defend.
I'm wondering why he didn't defend Epstein pro bono. He does all this pro bono work all the time. Like, geez. Like, if he really wants to make a statement, there's all these other guys that are going to do it for a bunch of money. Just do it pro bono. Do it for free. Do it for the love of the game.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, 100%. But one of my underlying reasons is also I think, I don't want to call it. I don't want to use an inflammatory comparison, but I think I don't want to associate for the reasons which now I think I don't want to associate with certain types of clients because of what.
You wouldn't be a doctor in San Diego either. You wouldn't be a doctor in Bay Ridge in Brooklyn because allegedly a lot of mafia people live there and might come and be your patients.
Well,
allegedly a bunch of mafia. I love how he knows where the mafia people in Brooklyn are.
Hey man.
Of course, he's a defense attorney. Yeah, exactly.
You gotta know where your clients are.
Exactly. You know where the business cards go. You know who to put the where to put the
You know which
business cards.
ambulances to chase after. Okay.
You gotta make some money here. Brooklyn's not cheap. I've lived in Brooklyn. It ain't cheap.
Then you wouldn't be a rabbi. You're not befriending people just because you associate with them as a professional. When you're a doctor in a doctor-patient relationship, a priest-penitent-patient relationship, a lawyer-client relationship,
only making it worse for yourself.
That's McCarthyism. You are
true.
performing a professional role.
But now this is where I'm gonna stop you. You're not, and I do agree with you.
I think this is a really poor comparison because like if you're a doctor in an emergency room and a patient comes in, it's not like you can say, I don't want to perform surgery on this patient. Like there's no criteria. Like you're the doctor on call and you perform the surgery. Like that's how it works. With a lawyer, you don't have to take a case as a public defender. Nothing forces you to do that.
Yeah, the public defender cases they throw at people, you have to do a certain amount of work.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You can't compare this to being like a doctor.
Oh my God! Imagine if the public defenders have to do 50% of their cases pro bono anyway. It's just like a standard. It's like 50%. It's like the standard, but nobody knows.
I don't think that's
Yes, he could. I love how he's comparing himself to man of God, a man who saves lives for a living, doctor. It's like all these. I get rich people off on murder.
You could say a criminal defense attorney does save people's lives. They save them life.
Yeah, he does.
Like,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, he gets rich people off on murder. It's great. Yeah.
Exactly.
In the same, I've had Cernovich on my channel. I'll discuss things with anybody because I don't think you associate through discussion. But there is a line when representing a client. There is a fine line between maintaining that distance, and I find sometimes with clients and lawyers, the lawyers sometimes, they cross that line, not in a nefarious way, just, in an inadvertent natural evolution way, and it gets people into trouble. In the same way, I think, that line may have been crossed between you and Epstein, but I want to get there in a second. But
not at all. Not at all.
Let me just.
Yeah.
But one thing that I do want to say for everybody who says no justice, I can't believe this guy defends, alleged whatevers. I thought about this earlier, that when people think you can be pressured morally into not representing someone who may very well be guilty to make the prosecution prove its case, it's only a matter of time before you get into a world where there's going to be political and social pressure to get lawyers to not represent political clients or clients for political or social reasons.
That's already happening. It's already happening. Look, I can't speak at Harvard, even though I taught there for 50 years, according to a student protest now, because I represented President Trump, who I didn't vote for in 2016. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I can't speak at Harvard because I was, quote, associated with President Trump. I have to go through a...
Isn't that hilarious? They're like, we don't want you speaking at Harvard because you defended Trump, not because you defended...
I know, it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. He makes that case against them.
I know, that's insane.
Bunch of crazy people.
That's fucking insane. This is where's your moral? I think a lot of people have to ask themselves where their moral system is at when it bothers them more that Dershowitz defended Trump than a fucking serial blackmailing pedophile rapist.
Well, racism is worse. Racism is worse than pedophilia in their hierarchy of crimes against humanity. So.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
sure. I forgot.
It's very simple. Very simple.
That's true. That's true.
Moral program and an admission of guilt, which of course I won't go through. I'm very proud of my representation of the Constitution on the floor of the Senate because President Trump was impeached on unconstitutional grounds. I would have made the same argument if Hillary Clinton had been elected and she had been impeached on unconstitutional grounds. So we're getting that already.
Even though he made the opposite argument against Bill Clinton, but that's a different story.
You're not supposed to look that up.
Okay. Look, he wasn't wrong then, Adam. He's just more right now.
Yeah, you get more right over time. That's how it works.
The McCarthyism is seeping from O.J. Simpson to President Trump to men who disagree with women on the Me Too movement to you name it. Anything that's politically correct today, people don't want to represent them. And if you want to win popularity contests, be a prosecutor or represent only
I
people
saw more of those freaky murals.
Pass the David.
Did they start making sense?
Is that you, son?
Tell any sort of
Viva?
story?
That was me, son.
Approval test.
It's okay. It's okay, Sid.
Well, it's
You're
funny
not
'cause
guilty.
Well,
prosecutors,
if they did,
like the
it was
leftist
lost
hate
on me.
prosecutors now.
The
They
tarot
do,
tells
yeah.
the story
I
of
don't
a
even.
fool's
I don't know how
perfectly
long
breaks
this
down.
idea is.
Show
gonna
me what
hold
you
true that
found.
he's
I'll
saying.
tell you what's left.
I came to an epiphany on
Here.
this very day. This very day.
You're still missing two arcana.
Why? It's
Judgment
always
and the
Democrats that
devil.
are defense attorneys. And it's
My guess
always
is that they
Republicans
relate
that
to
are
a turning
prosecuting.
point in your life.
I
One
figured it
that's
out.
soon to arrive.
But if you want to be a real criminal defense lawyer, you got to
Rather not run into
my
the devil.
approach, which is the
Got a
taxi
feeling
cab
he's
approach.
bad vibes.
First person who hails the cab
That's the
gets in
card
it,
of
you gotta go
primal
take 'em
dormant
wherever
desires,
she or
but
he
also the
wants
will
to
to
go,
survive.
and you can't
Doesn't
do
sound
anything
so
illegal
bad,
or unethical.
actually.
It's Osama bin Laden. He wants
also
to go to the
represents a
airport. What do you
false
do?
world.
Quick.
The trap these
Well,
desires
I
lay
have
for
to
you.
follow the codex of being a cab driver, which states that I must take my
What's his
fare
judgment
wherever he
about?
may desire, as long
One
as he
possible
pays and does
future
not do anything
of
illegal while in the
redemption,
vicinity of my
transition,
cab.
awakening.
Fuck you. I'm taking
The
him to
angel
ice.
with the trumpet symbolizes the end of an era.
You
The
don't
call to
get
rebirth,
pick and choose
to a
who
new
you
beginning.
represent. At least I don't. I pick the most
What's up with the
controversial,
wandering fool?
the most unpopular.
The fool is
because
you
I had
and
tenure. I
Silverhand.
couldn't get fired. I didn't have
You've
a law
traveled
firm
a
making
long
me do
road
things.
together.
I felt a special
Discovered your
responsibility
potential.
to represent
Where are we headed?
the worst of the worst,
Your
the most
destination
popular
is
of
the world,
unpopular,
the
the
final
most
arcana.
despised of the despised.
Both
and
of
that's
you
the most
waged a
important
war on
function
the
a criminal
world.
defense lawyer can
So there
serve.
are two possibilities.
Okay.
Declare
this is my
victory
big problem.
or
Okay,
make peace.
I understand, and I
Could
agree with
lose the
all the
war,
arguments
too.
about why you need to
Yes.
have these types of people, why you need
Unfortunately,
to have
that's
defense
true.
attorneys, why the law has to be set this way. I agree with all that
Thanks.
stuff, 100%.
Didn't get much of that, but thanks.
You can't.
You'll understand when the time
Well,
comes.
but
I can't explain
can't
everything. All the tarot can tell me
paint
is that you will
yourself
reach the world by
as he
one of
just did,
four paths.
as like this
Meaning?
moral arbiter. It's his
The final leg of the journey
responsibility
goes
to
through the sun,
defend
the star,
the people that no
temperance,
one will
or the
defend.
devil.
You can't
just
make
die,
that argument
not
when
even
you're
get
getting
that far.
paid by millionaires
Oh, come
hundreds
on.
of
You won't
thousands
let
of
that
dollars
happen.
to defend them against heinous
Take
crimes.
this.
Like it's
That's
not
all
like
I can do to help.
Epstein was out on the street as a homeless person and he had no money and everyone was ready to kill him, and he was that one guy like from Futurama who says like, I might not agree with him, but I'll fight the that's
Good
his
luck.
right to say it. He's not that guy.
On whatever
He's being
road you
paid shit
choose.
tons of money and getting shit tons of fame doing this. You can't say like you're so morally righteous for doing it.
You just want that little asterisk, don't you? You want him to come out and say, and I got very wealthy doing it.
No, I'm just
That's what you want him to say. And I
don't
got
want him to
rich
make-
doing it.
I don't want him to make this what I consider crazy moral claims for actions. Like
Was thinking
that
about
they're
swapping
not
some
ethical
chrome. You
You
got
want to
any
know.
new
You're like,
toys?
I made
Have a look.
$10 million off of the OJ trial. I made $40 million off of the Epstein deal. You want to
Well,
know?
as you
want-
said, why didn't he defend Epstein pro bono?
Cause you come on, it's Epstein. Come on. Of
You
course
know,
you're getting paid.
if
The
he's
guy
just doing-
blackmailed
look,
him. Of course he got
Look,
paid.
Dershowitz is, he sold lots of books. Okay, he has money. He had lots of money before. I'm assuming he had a decent amount of money before he's paid
He's
by
written
Epstein.
45 books. I never heard of it. I never even knew he wrote a book.
But yeah, but you're not in the legal world. We're not in the legal world. Okay, he was like a famous lawyer before he defended Epstein. Okay, so if he really believes this, why is he getting paid shit tons of money to defend a guy that people are chomping at the bit to defend? It's not like he's making it seem like no one wants to defend Epstein. That's so not true.
Yeah. Really get you. I like seeing you triggered.
You're evil.
You're like, the two things, making money and defending wackos.
There's nothing wrong. No, I'm totally in favor of making money.
Yeah.
You just can't claim that you're defending the moral hazard of society while also making shit tons of money at the same time.
Yeah.
Because as I said, making shit tons of money is basically society's way of saying that you're valuable to society.
I mean, but wouldn't you say, like, Elon Musk makes shitloads of money. He's trying to get us by planetary. So
Right, exactly.
you know,
And
if
so
a-
and that's what I said. When you make shit tons of money, that's basically society telling you that you have high value to that society, right?
right.
Okay. So if Elon Musk then turned around and said, "Oh, woe is me.
By the way.
I am doing the thing that no one in our society will want to do." That's when I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like everyone wants
Yeah,
to do
everyone
what you're
wants to do it.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it comes out that Mars is like his Epstein Island. He's got all these super young girls on Mars.
Super young Martian girls. Yeah.
Ugh, that's weird.
And I say that for good or for bad, it elicits the responses that you see. I mean, that
I
you
know
must
that.
that you're well aware of.
I've been eliciting that response for 50 years. It's nothing new to me.
Okay, now
You know,
let's get.
people
and I-
sometimes come over to me at a bar or restaurant and say, You know, I wonder, has anybody ever asked you this question before? They really say this. Has anybody ever asked you this question before? How can you represent somebody who might be guilty? I say, oh my God, 50 years, I've never thought of that. Thank you so much for raising that question.
Well,
I'm gonna have to go home and sleep on it now because I've never thought of that before. Nobody's ever asked me that question before.
But the thing is, and I think in people's minds, there's different thresholds of guilt, and there's different thresholds of that for which they're guilty. So, definitively guilty, questionably guilty. Definitively guilty of robbing a bank, definitively guilty of,
Let me give you an example of why that isn't so. Ron Sullivan, friend of mine, a professor at Harvard Law School, the former dean of one of the Harvard colleges, the first African American, along with his wife, to become a dean of a college at Harvard. Great man, great man. So, a few years ago, he represented the the end for the Boston Patriots, a man named Hernandez, who was accused of 2 brutal murders, gangland-style murders, horrible murders. Nobody in his house, the place where he was the college, nobody said they felt afraid, they were scared, they felt unsafe. Here was a lawyer who was representing murderers, but then he represented Harvey Weinstein. And they fired him because the people in the house said they were afraid, they were scared, they couldn't be in the same house. They felt unsafe. Being in the house of somebody who could represent Harvey Weinstein, no problem when he was representing 2 murderers. So it's not the seriousness of the crime. It's McCarthyism, it's political correctness, and it's today's de jure hatred.
Do you think that's what it is?
No.
Or I think it's something completely different.
Yeah, me too. Same thing. You go ahead. You say it.